In Alaska, the night stretches longer than anywhere else. Some say it's because of the poles, the tilt of the earth, the science. But those who've lived here long enough whisper something else, that the dark is alive. Across Anchorage, Fairbanks, Juneau, from frozen rivers to abandoned bunkers, people keep meeting things they can't explain. A woman in Whittier still swears she takes the same elevator every night, yet always steps out 2 decades in the past. In Ship Creek, fishermen say they hear ferry horns even when the river's frozen solid. Tonight we'll follow one of those stories. You're listening to Voices from the Other Side, where the cold speaks and sometimes it listens back. If you want to keep walking with us through the dark, hit like, share this episode, and subscribe so you won't miss the next whisper from the other side. Now, let's head to Anchorage, to a creek that used to carry ships, and maybe still does. Story 1. The Night Ferry at Ship Creek. The night in Anchorage was heavy, the kind of cold that didn't just bite your skin but crawled under it. Snowflakes drifted sideways, catching the pale yellow glow of the streetlights that lined the quiet docks of Ship Creek. Most people were home, wrapped in the safety of heating vents and family voices. But Eli Warner wasn't most people. He drove for a rideshare app, the kind that never sleeps, even in a place where the sun sometimes doesn't rise. The late-night shifts paid well. Fishermen, bar workers, night nurses, the kind of passengers who didn't ask too many questions. Eli liked that. Silence was easy money. At 1:13 a.m., his phone pinged. New request, Ship Creek Access Road. A strange pickup point, right on the edge of the riverbank, far from any houses. Still, Anchorage had its oddballs. He tapped accept. The GPS spun for a second, then drew a crooked blue line across the map. Not a road, but a faint path that seemed to follow the water. That's not right, Eli muttered. But the app didn't care. The fare blinked green. He drove. The tires hummed against the icy asphalt as he turned off the main road. Steam rose from the hood as his old Subaru crept closer to the docks. The night was quiet, too quiet, except for the distant hum of the water beneath the frozen crust. The pickup point pulsed on the map, sitting right in the middle of the river. Eli frowned. Okay, that's impossible. He checked the fare's name, Captain Al. Cute, he said, forcing a chuckle. Probably some drunk guy playing jokes. Still, the meter was running. He rolled down the window, letting the air sting his face. Captain Al? You there? Only the faint sound of lapping water answered. He was about to cancel the ride when his headlights flickered. Once, twice, and in the dim beam he thought he saw a shape near the river's edge. A figure in an old fisherman's coat, face turned away, waving one slow arm like he was hailing a taxi. Eli's stomach tightened. All right, buddy, this is stupid, he muttered, stepping out of the car. The wind bit harder, carrying the smell of brine and rust. When he reached the edge, the man was gone. Just ripples spreading across the black water. The air felt thicker, heavy like breathing through wool. Then came another ping. Drop-off location added. Anchorage Ferry Terminal closed. Eli blinked. What ferry? There hasn't been one here in years. The GPS line updated, glowing faintly across the map, following the creek downstream, cutting through where roads used to be. He glanced back at the passenger's seat. For a moment, just a flicker, it looked wet, as if someone had just been sitting there, soaked to the bone. His phone chimed again. Message from Captain Al. Don't leave them waiting too long. The text vanished almost instantly. Eli's throat went dry. He climbed back into the car, heat blasting, fingers trembling. Okay, this is a prank, he whispered. Someone's messing with the system. He tried to end the trip, but the cancel button was gone. In its place, ride in progress. The car's radio switched on by itself, crackling with static. Then beneath the hiss came the faint sound of a foghorn. Long, low, mournful. Eli's eyes darted to the river. Fog was spilling over the ice now, thick and moving fast, curling around his tires. The GPS arrow pulsed again, urging him forward. Against his better judgment, Eli shifted into drive. The headlights carved a path through the mist, glinting off the half-frozen water. He drove slowly, headlights bouncing across rusted rails and broken docks. The mist swallowed everything, the city, the sounds, the stars. His world shrank to 2 flickering beams and the soft voice of the GPS whispering, "Turn left, turn right, continue straight for 3 miles." But there were no roads. Just the faint illusion of movement like the car was gliding. Then a voice, not the GPS. A low, gravelly tone from the back seat. "You're late." Eli slammed the brakes. Heart hammering, he spun around. The back seat was empty. Steam fogged the inside of the windshield. The temperature dropped fast. Frost crawled across the dashboard like a living thing. A wet footprint appeared on the back seat leather. Then another. Then a trail leading toward the front passenger seat. "Jesus Christ," Eli gasped, fumbling for his phone, but the screen was black. The car's clock blinked 1:33 a.m. Again and again, refusing to change. From outside came the creak of wood, the sound of ropes tightening, metal groaning, as if a docked ship were shifting under invisible weight. Through the mist, something vast began to take shape. The shadow of a ferry, old and massive, half submerged, its hull glowing faintly blue beneath the fog. A ferry, moving upstream. Directly toward him. Eli couldn't move. His breath fogged the air. From the river's surface, dozens of pale faces began to emerge. Commuters in soaked coats, clutching old tickets, watching him through hollow eyes. Then the radio whispered again, a voice barely human, like static shaped into words. "Boarding time." The headlights died. Everything went black. And the phone on its dead screen flashed one final message before it too went dark. "Trip accepted, fare collected." Eli didn't remember blacking out. One moment, the ferry's shadow had swallowed his headlights, and the next he was sitting behind the wheel again. Car still running, heater humming low, fog pressed thick against the windows like gray flesh. He blinked hard. His phone screen glowed faintly. Trip in progress. Distance remaining, 6 miles. "What the hell?" he whispered. Outside the world looked wrong, not gone, just rewritten. The city lights were dim and smeared as if seen through water. Buildings leaned at impossible angles. Traffic lights pulsed a sickly green though no cars moved. The road beneath him was asphalt no longer. It was damp wood, the warped boards of an old dock stretching endlessly forward into the fog. His tires hissed with every turn. The smell of algae and fuel was thick, clinging to his throat. He tried to turn back, but the steering wheel locked. The GPS voice, calm and synthetic, whispered again. "Continue on Ferry Route 1. Ferry Route 1? Eli barked a laugh that cracked in the silence. "That doesn't exist. That's..." "Continue on Ferry Route 1. He slammed the dashboard. The sound echoed too long, like the car was hollow, the world around him cavernous. Somewhere in the distance, a horn moaned again, the same low, mournful sound that had chased him from the river. His headlights flickered, revealing faint reflections ahead. Water pooled between the dock planks, glinting like eyes. And standing along the edges, figures began to appear. They weren't walking. They were swaying. Like commuters waiting for a train that would never come. Eli's breath came shallow. He slowed the car, squinting. The people, if they were people, wore coats soaked dark, faces indistinct, blurred by fog. Each held something, a ticket, a suitcase, a rusted lunch pail. And every one of them turned slowly to face him as he passed. No eyes. Just hollow sockets filled with faint light, like lanterns and skulls. He pressed the gas. The Subaru jerked forward. The figures vanished into mist, leaving only the echo of footsteps on wood, following. The GPS chimed again, next turn, dock gate. Estimated time of arrival, 1:44 a.m. Eli checked the clock, 1:33 a.m. Still. Frozen. He gripped the wheel tighter. "You're not real," he muttered, repeating it like a prayer. "You're not real, you're not." Something hit the side mirror. Art. He jolted. A pale hand had slapped the glass, webbed fingers dragging streaks of water down the window. Then another hand. Then many. They were knocking, softly, rhythmically, like asking to come in. Knock. 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 Jesus, no. He hit the accelerator. The car surged forward, tires screeching against wet wood. The knocking grew louder, faster, surrounding him, on the roof, the doors, the trunk. And then silence. Only the sound of the engine, panting like a dying animal. When he dared look back, the fog behind him had thickened into something alive, a wall of gray shot through with faint silhouettes. It was following him. The GPS whispered again, almost tender. Approaching destination. Prepare for arrival. Ahead, the dock widened into what looked like an ancient ferry terminal. The roof sagged, the sign half gone. Through the mist, he saw a ticket booth, its glass fogged from the inside. Something moved behind it. He stopped the car, breath shallow. The fog wrapped the world in cotton silence. He could hear his own heartbeat echoing inside his skull. He opened the door. The air was colder here, not natural cold but vacuum cold like the temperature of space. Wood creaked beneath his boots. The ticket booth's light flickered weakly. A brass bell hung above the counter, long tarnished. He raised a hand and rang it. Ding. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then slowly the fog inside the booth cleared, revealing a man behind the glass. Or what had been a man. His skin had the color of drowned paper. His eyes were black, empty sockets, and his mouth smiled. Evening, the voice rasped, bubbling like water through mud. Ferry's late tonight. Eli stepped back. I'm not here for a ferry. My app glitched. Oh, I know, the thing said, sliding forward. Its hand pressed against the glass, thin, translucent, fingers webbed. But you accepted the trip. The booth glass began to frost from the inside, words forming in the ice like handwriting. Fair in progress. They've been waiting, the man behind the glass murmured. You should go. They don't like delays. Eli turned to run, but the dock was gone. Only the fog remained, stretching forever in all directions. Behind him the bell rang again. Ding, ding, ding. Growing faster, louder, until it was a shriek of metal and water. The fog pulsed. And from within it he saw lights, hundreds of them, forming windows, decks, the silhouette of a massive ship gliding silently toward him. The ferry had returned. He stumbled backward as a voice whispered beside his ear, not from any direction but from within the fog itself. Continue on ferry route 2. The horn of the ferry bellowed again, long, low, and unending. The sound didn't just echo, it vibrated through Eli's ribs, through the dock, through his teeth. The fog rippled like a living thing. He stumbled backward toward his car. His breath came in bursts, the air so cold it sliced his throat. Not happening, he whispered. Not real. He climbed back into the Subaru, slamming the door shut. The windshield was already frosting over. On the inside, he scraped it with his sleeve, and froze. Handprints. Dozens of them pressed from the inside out. Each one dripping with condensation that smelled faintly of river water. Jesus, he muttered, turning the ignition. The car started reluctantly. He jammed the gear shift into reverse and hit the gas. The tires spun but didn't move. It was as if the dock had turned to glue beneath him. The radio flickered alive, static whispering like voices pressed close to his ear. Amid the hiss came a murmur, multiple voices overlapping. The fare must complete, the fare. He slammed the radio off. But the whisper didn't stop. Now it came from the vents, soft and wet, like something breathing through the car's lungs. Complete the fare, Eli. He froze. They knew his name. The fog around the car pulsed once, twice, and then cleared just enough for him to see the ferry dock itself. It wasn't made of metal anymore. It was made of shadows held together by dripping ropes of light. Figures walked down its gangway, silent silhouettes in coats, each clutching a faded paper ticket that bled black ink. They began to line up beside his car. One by one. Eli hit the lock button. Click. The sound felt tiny, absurd. Through the glass he saw them more clearly, faces drained of all color, eyes like washed-out photographs. Some were missing pieces, a cheek, a jaw, a chunk of their head, water glistening in the gaps. One woman leaned down to his window. Her hair floated in slow motion as if underwater. Her lips moved soundlessly. Then tap-tap. Her hand held up a wet dollar bill against the glass. Eli's gut twisted. The bill clung to the window, translucent, edges frayed and darkened like old kelp. He could read the faint words scrawled across its surface in smudged ink. "Thank you for the ride." He flinched, swatting it away, but another one slapped the rear window. Then another. Within seconds, the car was plastered in wet bills, each one stamped with fingerprints and faint words. "For passage. For return. For debt repaid." He screamed, throwing the car into drive. The wheels lurched, and suddenly the glue beneath him released. The Subaru shot forward, tearing through the fog. But the road was gone again. The GPS pulsed. "Continue on Ferry Route 2. ETA, 1:44 a.m. Always 1:44. Always approaching. Never arriving." The river appeared beneath his tires, black, unbroken, yet somehow solid enough to hold him. The headlights reflected off its surface, showing faint ripples, and shapes beneath the ice. Pale outlines. Moving. Something thudded against the underside of the car. What? Twice. Then, a scraping sound. Eli swallowed hard. No. The dashboard lights dimmed. The radio came on again by itself. The song, old, warbling, a 1940s Ferry jingle, sweet and wrong. Then, between the verses, a whisper. "They paid. You drive." The temperature plunged. Frost spread over the steering wheel. His breath crystallized midair. He looked into the rearview mirror. They were in the back seat. 4 of them, passengers, soaked, still dripping. Their heads bowed, hands folded neatly over laps. River mud pooled at their feet. One of them, the woman with the floating hair, slowly turned toward him. "Route 2, she said, voice gurgling through waterlogged lungs. "Finish it." He screamed and swerved, but the car didn't respond. The steering wheel moved on its own, smooth and deliberate. Through the windshield, the fog parted like curtains, revealing an endless stretch of black water highway flanked by half-sunken lampposts. Each lamp burned with a ghostly glow, lighting the path forward. The GPS chimed again, calm as ever. "Next stop, Terminal 2, passenger collection." Eli's body trembled. His phone buzzed once, notification sound. He glanced down. A new message, no number, "We were the first. You won't be the last." He dropped the phone. A sound grew around him, a low humming like hundreds of voices exhaling together. The passengers in the back began to sing, soft and toneless, a dirge in reverse. "The river runs, the ferry comes, the driver never leaves." The headlights flickered, then dimmed. Ahead, the fog thinned, and he saw them. Hundreds of other cars. All moving in a line. Headlights glowing under the water. Each car filled with silent passengers staring forward. He wasn't the only one. A realization hit like ice. This wasn't a glitch. This was a system. A machine that fed itself with souls who pressed, accept. The woman in the back leaned close, whispering, "You're part of the route now." And then, as the ferry horn wailed once more, Eli felt the steering wheel dissolve beneath his hands. The Subaru glided forward, silently, into the line of cars stretching into eternity. The last thing he saw before the fog consumed him was a single wet dollar bill fluttering onto his lap, the ink bleeding across his jeans. Words scrawled in shaky letters, "Trip completed." The fog swallowed the world again. Eli could no longer tell if he was driving, floating, or falling. The Subaru's wheels whispered against water that looked like glass and felt like air. Behind him, the choir of the dead hummed their broken lullaby, each note a heartbeat away from silence. "The river runs, the ferry comes." Their voices rose and fell, echoing in his skull until the words weren't words anymore, just rhythm, just obedience. The headlights sliced through the gray nothing ahead, and finally caught something. A shadow. Immense. Moving. The ferry loomed out of the fog like a creature breaching the surface. Its hull groaned, dripping streams of black water that turned into steam before touching the river. Rusted chains clanged somewhere high above. Its windows glowed dimly, not with electricity but with faces. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all pressed against the glass. Eli's foot froze on the brake. The car slowed, trembling. The passengers in the back stopped humming. For the first time he heard them breathe. They were waiting. The GPS spoke again, calm as ever. Now boarding. The Subaru rolled forward on its own. Metal scraped under the tires as it crossed what looked like a ramp of wet steel connecting the dock of fog to the ship's hull. The moment the car touched the deck, everything went silent. The radio cut off. The engine died. Even the sound of his own heartbeat seemed to dim. The fog outside turned solid, a wall of shifting light. Inside the car it smelled like wet wood and salt. Eli dared to look up. The ferry's deck stretched endlessly, cars lined up in rows, some half sunk into the boards, others rusted skeletons of models decades old. Behind each windshield, passengers sat upright. So, waiting. And now they were all looking at him. He opened his door. The air outside was thick, cold mist crawling down his throat, tasting metallic. When his boots touched the deck, they sank slightly, like stepping into soaked sponge. Each footprint filled with water that shimmered faintly blue. The woman from his back seat emerged beside him, silent. Her eyes were hollow but aware. She tilted her head, water dripping from her hair. "The ferry remembers," she whispered. "It always comes for what was promised." Eli stepped back, shaking his head. "Promised? I didn't promise anything." "You accepted," she said simply. He turned and froze. The dock behind him was gone. Only water remained, stretching to every horizon. The fog above churned like clouds viewed from underwater, glowing veins of pale light moving within it, as though the sky itself were alive. The ferry's horn bellowed again, closer this time, inside his head. The deck beneath him shifted. He stumbled. Something beneath the boards knocked once, twice. Slow, deliberate. Like knocking on a coffin lid. A door near the bow creaked open. Light spilled out, flickering yellow, the color of old bulbs and dying memories. Without knowing why, Eli walked toward it. His body moved before his thoughts did. Inside was a cabin, part control room, part shrine. Old photos hung on the walls, black and white portraits of ferry captains, crew, families smiling by the river. Every face had been scratched out. At the center of the room stood a wooden helm, still turning on its own. Behind it, a figure. He recognized the coat first. The fisherman's coat from the riverbank. And then the name stitched across its chest. Capt. L. The man's head turned slowly. His skin was pale, translucent, the texture of wax left in the sun. His eyes were pits of shadow. "You made good time," he rasped. Eli's voice cracked. "Who are you?" "The first driver," the captain said. "Before they built roads, we ferried people across. Storms, tides, war, we never stopped. And when the river froze, they built the app." He smiled, lips peeling. "It still needs drivers." Eli stumbled backward. "No, this isn't real, this is some kind of nightmare." "Then wake up," the captain hissed. The walls shuddered. The fog outside surged like a tidal wave, slamming against the glass. The entire ship groaned, bowing under invisible weight. Eli turned to run, but the doorway was gone. Only mirrors now, endless all around him. In each reflection he saw himself, sitting behind the wheel, but not as he was. Different cars. Different eras. Each Eli wearing a different face, frozen in terror. And every reflection held a wet dollar bill between its fingers. One reflection, the nearest, lifted its head and spoke in his own voice. Trip completed. The mirrors shattered. The deck reappeared, but now flooded ankle-deep in icy water. The passengers were boarding again, one by one, vanishing through the mist. The woman turned to him, her voice a whisper barely louder than the fog. "You should go back before the tide changes." He stared, wide-eyed. "Back where?" "Where the next fare waits." The ferry's horn roared one final time, deep enough to shake his teeth loose, and Eli's world folded inward, collapsing into the sound. Then, silence. Only ship creak. Empty, frozen, quiet. A Subaru sat idling by the river, engine cold, driver's seat empty. Inside on the dashboard lay a single wet dollar bill, its ink bleeding into the words, "New request, Ship Creek Access Road." The engine wasn't running, yet the Subaru's dash still glowed. Trip accepted, fare collected. Those words pulsed like a heartbeat. Eli sat up with a gasp. His lungs burned with river air that smelled of rust and ice. He was back in the driver's seat, parked exactly where the nightmare had begun, the edge of Ship Creek. The fog was gone, replaced by a thin gray dawn. The water lay still, frozen solid. No ferry. No passengers. Only silence. He touched the steering wheel. It was warm. A soft ping broke the quiet. New request, Ship Creek Access Road. ETA 1:44 a.m. Eli blinked at the clock. It read 1:44. But the sun was rising. The numbers didn't move. He stared at the phone. The profile photo of the passenger was blank. Just a gray outline, no name. For a second he almost hit decline. Almost. But his thumb twitched. Except. The map redrew itself. A single blue line curving through the river into the heart of the city. Not again, he whispered. Yet the wheel turned on its own. Anchorage unfolded around him, empty and silent. The buildings looked new, too new, their glass perfect, no signs of life inside. The streets gleamed as if freshly paved, yet there were no cars, no sound except his tires hissing through puddles that reflected faces instead of clouds. At the first intersection, a figure waited by the curb, an old man in a heavy coat. Eli slowed, heart pounding. The man raised his hand in a familiar slow wave. "Captain L?" Eli whispered. The man smiled. His teeth were too many, too sharp. He opened the passenger door and climbed in. Water dripped from his sleeves, pooling at his boots. "Morning," he said calmly. "Route 2's on schedule." Eli's voice trembled. "I'm not driving anymore." "You are?" the captain replied. "The river picked you. It always needs one living hand at the wheel." He reached into his coat and pulled out a ledger, its pages warped by water. Inside were rows of names, thousands, each followed by a time, a location, and a single word. Completed. Eli flipped to the last page. The ink was still wet. Warner Eli, Ship Creek, 1:44 a.m. Pending. The captain closed the book gently. Every captain has a last passenger. Yours is waiting. The radio clicked on. Static filled the cabin, then the sound of footsteps, sloshing water, and a faint voice whispering. "He left us behind." The temperature dropped again. Frost climbed the windows, forming shapes, letters, words. "Return the fare." Eli's breath fogged. "What does that mean?" The captain didn't answer. He looked ahead. The fog was rolling back in, swallowing the new daylight. The buildings of Anchorage faded until only water remained. The Subaru was floating. Eli's hands clutched the steering wheel, but it wasn't a wheel anymore. It was the wooden helm of the ferry. "You're part of the route now," the captain murmured. "Finish it." The world tilted. Beneath the car, shapes stirred, pale hands, faces, passengers rising from the dark, holding their tickets. They climbed the invisible gangway, entering through the car doors one by one. Each left behind a wet dollar bill on the seat. Each whispered the same word, home. The car filled with water halfway up his chest. Still Eli couldn't move. The captain sat calmly beside him, eyes fixed on the fog ahead. "What happens if I finish?" Eli asked. "You take my place," the captain said. "Every route ends at another beginning." Outside, the fog shimmered, and through it, a reflection appeared. The ferry. Enormous, ancient, its decks lined with cars, each with a driver staring blankly forward. At the front of that ghostly fleet, his Subaru gleamed. Inside it, himself, pale, motionless, eyes open. "No," Eli whispered. "That's not me." The captain smiled. "Then don't look away." The water rose over Eli's mouth. His final breath came out as bubbles. His vision dimmed to gray. Trip completed, the captain's voice echoed. Silence. When the fog cleared, the river was calm again. No ferry. No car. Only the whisper of wind across the frozen creek. Later that morning, a fisherman setting his nets found a phone half buried in ice near the shore. Its screen was cracked but still glowing faintly. A rideshare app was open. New request, Ship Creek Access Road. Driver, a Warner. And beneath it, the time, frozen forever at 1:44 a.m. They say rivers in Alaska don't truly end. They just sink, disappearing beneath frozen ground, winding under mountains, beneath towns, beneath the lives of people who stopped believing in ghosts. Ship Creek froze again that winter. No one ever found Eli Warner's car. But a month later, pieces of it began turning up, not by the water, but inside the walls of an abandoned military complex in Whittier, miles away. Workers restoring the Buckner building swore they heard the echo of car horns in the empty corridors. Some said the elevators moved by themselves, always at 1:44 a.m., and that every time the doors opened, the floor numbers were replaced with years. The locals call it the Buckner's clock. But the ones who've been inside know it by another name. Buckner's elevator. They call the Buckner building the city under one roof. Back in the 1950s, it housed soldiers, families, theaters, even a hospital. Everything stacked inside a gray concrete mountain looking over the frozen port of Whittier. When the earthquakes came, people fled. When the ghosts arrived, no one did. Now it's 2025. 3 content creators, obsessed with forgotten places of Alaska, sneak through a side door at midnight, cameras blinking like fireflies. "We'll only stay 10 minutes, laughs Tess, the leader. Hashtag Urban Alaska. The others, Jay and Morgan, reply with forced chuckles that vanish into the echoing hall. Inside, the air feels thick, almost underwater. Every step stirs dust that tastes like salt and rust. Their flashlights reveal corridors stretching forever, lined with peeling murals of ships and waves. The paint seems to move when light hits it, like the sea painted itself and still wants to breathe. At the far end, a pair of elevator doors. Tall steel, tarnished green. Above them, an old indicator dial, numbers 1 through 9.5. The arrow rests between floors. Jay zooms in with his camera. "Check it out, looks like the pointer's stuck between 5 and 6. But the moment he says it, the arrow twitches. Then ticks down. 4, 3, ding. "No way," Tess whispers. "There's no power in this building." Morgan presses her hand to the metal. Swarm. From somewhere deep inside, gears stir, slow and wet. A breath of air slides out through the gap between the doors. It smells like river water. Jay snorts. "Okay, that's new. Maybe there's groundwater seeping up." Tess steps closer. Or something else came up. They wait. The elevator doesn't open, just hums. Then the panel above the doors changes. The numbers are gone. In their place glows a single word, 1964. Morgan backs away. "What the hell kind of floor is that?" "The year of the Great Alaska Quake," Tess answers softly. The metal creaks. The doors slide apart. A gust of air bursts out, colder than outside. Their flashlights stutter. Inside the elevator, an old mirror, cracked, reflecting 3 faces and something else behind them. A 4th shadow standing where no one should be. Morgan screams and spins around. Nothing. "Okay," Tess says, forcing a smile for the camera. "We get a quick shot and we leave." They step in. The floor sags like a wet lung. The air tastes of iron and old film reels. Jay presses the panel. Only one button glows. Down. "Guess that's our only option," he says, half joking. Ding. The doors close. Darkness wraps them. "How far down could it go?" Morgan asks. 9 floors, Tess replies. "Maybe a basement or 2. But the display overhead flickers. 10, 11, 12. Each number appears for half a second, followed by a flash of light outside the glass window in the door, as if the elevator were passing through rooms filled with people frozen in motion. "Tess," Jay whispers, "we're still moving down." "I know." The light inside shifts to blue. The walls shimmer like water. Somewhere above them, faint music plays, an old military march on tape, warped and slowing. Morgan clutches Tessa's arm. The air's getting thicker, like we're breathing underwater. Tess looks at the mirror. Their reflections aren't matching their movements anymore. Her reflection smiles before she does. Ding. The doors open. A long hall lit by fluorescent tubes that flicker in slow motion. The walls drip condensation. Old signs hang crooked. UOS, Army Operations, 1964. "This can't be real," Jay mutters. The place was abandoned decades ago. In the distance, a figure in uniform crosses the hall, carrying a clipboard. He walks straight through a wall. Tess steps out. Her boots splash in a puddle that ripples on its own. The air vibrates with the sound of muffled sirens and rushing water, the memory of the quake. Jay's camera screen glitches. For a frame, it shows Eli Warner's Subaru submerged, lights still on, beneath a sign reading Ship Creek Transit. He gasps. What the, Tess look? But when she turns, the screen is blank. Behind them, the elevator doors close with a slow, final click. On the panel above it, the year changes again. Then a new word fades in glowing sickly green, basement. And beneath it, a smaller line flickers like a heartbeat. Trip accepted, fare collected. Tess pressed the button again. Nothing happened. The elevator stood silent, its single light pulsing like a dying eye. Jay kicked the door. Come on. It's just an old prop elevator, right? But the door didn't even rattle. Behind the metal, something breathed. Morgan's voice trembled. It said basement. But there's no basement here. Tess swallowed hard. Her breath clouded the air. Maybe the earthquake buried it. They stood there, staring at the glowing word basement on the panel. Then, faintly, the floor shivered beneath their boots, a vibration deep and rhythmic like an engine heartbeat. Jay aimed his flashlight down the hall. The corridor that had once led back to the lobby was gone. In its place, concrete walls pressed tight around them, narrowing into nothing. It's closing in, Morgan whispered. No, Tess said. It's resetting. A sudden ding. The light over the door flickered. The word basement vanished. In its place, 5.5. Jay frowned. 5.5? The elevator doors slid open by themselves. Behind them, another hallway. But it wasn't military anymore. It was something else. Office cubicles, plastic chairs, stacks of paperwork half melted into the floor. The air smelled of burnt wires and mold. Somewhere far off, a phone was ringing. Tess stepped out first. Her boots left wet prints on the linoleum. Okay, we film this, then we go. Please, she said, voice unsteady. Morgan nodded, but Jay's camera was already rolling. This is crazy, nobody's documented this section before. They moved slowly between the cubicles. Old posters clung to the walls, recruitment slogans mixed with motivational quotes. Always be on time. Every second counts. Each poster's image was slightly off. People with blurred faces, watches that pointed to 1:44. Guys, Morgan whispered, why does every clock here show the same time? Jay zoomed in on one. Maybe it stopped during the quake. But the second hand was still moving. Backward. Then the phone stopped ringing. The silence pressed on their eardrums like a held breath. From somewhere inside the maze of cubicles came a faint ding. Not a phone. Not a machine. A bell, like the one above an elevator door. Is there another lift down here? Tess murmured. They followed the sound, weaving deeper through the frozen office world. The floor sloped downward slightly. The walls began to sweat. Paint peeled in slow curls, revealing letters carved beneath. Morgan brushed one clean with her sleeve. Don't answer the call. She stepped back, eyes wide. Tess, we need to leave. But before Tess could reply, the ding came again, closer now. The cubicles ended at a smaller elevator, its doors dented, its display cracked. Above it glowed a single phrase, between floors. Jay swallowed. What does that mean? Tess frowned. I've read that term before. In old Buckner blueprints, there was a maintenance shaft that didn't connect to any level. A dead zone between stories. It was sealed off after 1964. Then how's it still powered? Morgan whispered. The elevator dinged a third time. The doors creaked open. Inside, darkness. But not empty. They could hear faint breathing. Slow, deliberate. Jay raised his camera. The night vision flicked on, painting everything in green. For a moment, the inside looked empty, until a shape moved in the far corner. A man. Or what was left of one. His uniform clung to his bones, soaked. The tag on his chest read Capt. L. No, Tess gasped. That's the same name from Ship Creek. The figure lifted its head. Water streamed from his mouth as he spoke. You're between floors. What? Jay choked out. Between now and then. The elevator light flashed violently. The floor trembled. A wave of cold air burst through the cubicles, extinguishing their flashlights. Screams echoed, then cut off. When Tessa's camera flicked back on, she was alone. The hallway was gone. The walls were steel again. And on the panel above the door, a new message blinked softly. Passenger remaining. One continued descent. Tess tried every button on the panel. None responded. The light overhead flickered like it was breathing. The only thing glowing steadily was a small display above the door. Floor. Between and beneath it, a single word that shouldn't have existed. Year, 1964. Tess pressed her palm against the wall. The metal was warm, almost pulsing, as if something inside was alive. J. Morgan? Her voice echoed, swallowed by the narrow cabin. Only static answered from the radio mic clipped to her chest. Then a click. Tess. Jay's voice crackled through. We're still here, where are? The signal broke, warped. She could make out fragments, syllables floating through water. We're on floor 5, half. Can't see the exit. It's changing. Jay, don't move. I'm coming up. Tess shouted. She hit the up button again. The elevator shuddered, but the display didn't change. Instead, the digits on the panel began to cycle. 1964, 1965, 1966. The numbers sped faster and faster, blurring into white. Then stopped. Year, 2025. The doors slid open. A flood of light poured in, harsh, clinical. Tess squinted, shielding her face. When her eyes adjusted, she gasped. The hallway outside wasn't decayed anymore. It was perfect. Freshly painted, polished floors, fluorescent lights humming overhead. The air smelled of bleach and new carpet. For a moment, relief flooded her chest. Maybe she was back. Maybe it had all been an illusion. J. Morgan. She called. Her voice echoed down the empty corridor. No answer. She stepped out. Her boots made no sound on the spotless floor. At the far end, a glass directory read, Buckner Building Redevelopment, Whittier Renewal Project 2025. Tess exhaled shakily. We did it, we time jumped or something, but... A phone rang from behind the reception desk. 3 sharp rings. Then silence. She approached, hesitating. The phone was an old rotary, out of place in this modern hallway. Its cord stretched into the wall, or rather, through the wall, vanishing into nothing. It rang again. Once. Twice. 3 times. On the 4th ring she picked it up. Hello? Pause. Then a voice she knew too well. Tess, it's me. Bick. Relief surged. Jay. Where are you? But his tone was wrong, flat, distant, echoing from somewhere below. Still on 5.5, he said slowly. We can't leave. The walls keep closing. Morgan tried the other elevator. Tessa's heart sank. I'm coming down. I found another floor. No, he interrupted. You can't come back. You're already gone. What? It's still 1964 here. The line crackled violently. Static screamed in her ear. Tess dropped the phone. The lights overhead flickered. The walls began to ripple like heat haze. Posters peeled themselves off the walls, revealing rusted steel beneath the paint, like the new building was just skin stretched over a corpse. Her phone buzzed. A notification, new message, rideshare app. Confused, she opened it. Trip accepted, passenger, L. Warner, route active. She stared. Eli Warner? The guy from Ship Creek? The elevator behind her dinged. The doors opened, revealing not the interior she left, but a different elevator entirely. Its walls were mirrored, its lights red instead of white. In the reflection she saw herself, but older. Pale. Eyes hollow. Don't, whispered a voice. It came from the reflection's lips, though hers didn't move. Don't step in. Every year the door opens and someone fills the seat. The year never ends until it's full. The floor beneath her feet trembled. The mirrors on the wall began to fog, each one showing a different version of the same hallway. 1964, 1970, 1989, 2025, looping endlessly. From the elevator interior, faint elevator music started, warped, dragging. Musical note, please remain calm, between floors. musical note. The phone on the desk rang again. But now multiple phones were ringing, down every corridor, behind every door, rising in a deafening chorus. Tess clutched her camera to her chest. "If anyone finds this recording," she whispered, "don't take the elevator." Any elevator. A shadow passed across the glass directory. Her reflection in it turned toward her and smiled. "It's your stop," it said. The elevator doors slammed shut on their own. The floor number above glowed one last time. Year, 1964. And the speaker above the door whispered. Trip completed. The elevator wasn't moving anymore. Or maybe it never had. Tess stood perfectly still, one hand on the camera, the other gripping the wall. Her breathing fogged the red glass around her, spreading shapes that looked almost human, faces forming and vanishing in the mist. She whispered to herself. "This isn't real, this isn't happening." The display above the door glowed faintly. Year, 1964. Then flickered. Year, 2025. Then both, overlapping until the numbers bled into each other like two realities colliding. The intercom crackled. "Tess?" She froze. It wasn't Jay this time. The voice was older. Flat. "Mel. Who is this?" she demanded. A long pause. Static. Then. "Captain L. speaking. You've taken a wrong route." Her mouth went dry. "You're dead." "So are most of them," he said calmly. "But the elevator doesn't care. It keeps collecting. Some rides don't end. Some passengers never get off." The lights dimmed. Through the mirrored door, Tess saw movement, rows of figures fading in and out of reflection. Men and women in uniforms, in winter coats and hospital gowns. Their heads lolled, eyes glazed with fog. Each held a ticket, ink smeared and dripping. They stood silently in the reflection, waiting. "Who are they?" Tess whispered. "Commuters," the captain said. "They boarded during the quake. The ferry was full, so the building took them instead. It needed another vessel." "The building?" "Everything connects here, river, steel, time. The Buckner was built over what Ship Creek used to feed. It's part of the route now. Between floors, between years, between lives." Tess backed away. Her shoulder brushed something cold. A hand. She spun around, no one. But a wet handprint remained on the glass. "I want out," she whispered. "Then finish the ride," the captain's voice said. "There's always one more stop." The elevator jolted. Her stomach lurched as the floor dropped. Ding. The doors slid open. It wasn't a hallway this time. It was a train platform submerged in dim blue light. The air smelled of rust and seawater. Posters along the wall showed smiling faces waving from ships and trains, each dated differently. 1964, 1989, 2003, 2025. And beneath every date the same slogan, "Your trip never ends." Tess stepped out slowly. The camera light cut through the fog. Rows of benches stretched into the dark. On them sat passengers, hundreds of them. Their skin pale, translucent, their bodies frozen in place. Some still clutched old suitcases. Others held lunchboxes stamped with names half worn away. At the far end, a station clock hung crookedly. The time, 1:44. It wasn't ticking. It was breathing. She turned her camera toward it. "Is this where they go?" A voice answered from behind her, soft, childlike. "They don't go. They wait." She swung around. A little girl stood there, barefoot, dripping wet. Her eyes were glassy, her skin the color of cold milk. "Who are you?" Tess asked gently. "I was on the ferry," the girl said. Then the floor broke. Mommy said to wait for the next one. But it never came. The sound of machinery stirred, deep and slow. The air vibrated. At the platform's edge, rails shimmered, glowing faintly blue. Something was coming. A distant horn moaned, low, mournful, the same sound from Ship Creek. The girl smiled sadly. The ferry doesn't sail anymore. So the elevator brings them now. Tess staggered backward, camera shaking. She turned to run, but the benches were empty now. The passengers stood in the fog, surrounding her, faces dripping river water. Each whispered as they passed. "Trip completed. Trip completed. Trip completed. They moved toward the elevator, filing in one by one. Each left a wet dollar bill on the platform tiles. Tessa's pulse hammered in her skull. The captain's voice returned, softer this time. All passengers accounted for. One still on board. She looked down at her reflection in the puddle beneath her feet. The little girl stood beside her in the water, but the reflection showed only one figure. "You're the last one," whispered the girl. The ground trembled. The elevator doors behind her began to close on their own. Tess ran, but the floor liquefied, pulling her ankles down like mud. The girl reached out, touched Tessa's hand, and smiled. "Don't worry," she said. "It's always the same ride." The platform lights burst. Darkness swallowed everything. Ding. The elevator descended. The elevator kept moving long after the floor numbers vanished. The display showed no digits now, just a blinking cursor pulsing faintly like something alive. Tess clung to the handrail, soaked and trembling. Every breath came out as fog. She whispered to herself just to prove she still could. "If anyone's listening, this is Tess Varela. I'm inside the Buckner building. I don't know what floor this is. I think I'm not supposed to be here." The walls around her groaned, bending slightly inward as though the elevator itself were breathing. Something dripped from the ceiling, not water but ink-black liquid that smelled of salt and oil. "Keep descending," the intercom whispered. "Final floor approaching." "Captain?" Tess snapped. "What happens down there?" Silence. Then the faint sound of waves. She reached for the control panel. It was gone. In its place, a brass plaque gleamed faintly, Buckner Transit Authority. Beneath it, a single switch. Engraved words read, "Open water." Tess hesitated. Her hand hovered above it. "Don't," said a voice behind her. She spun. The elevator wasn't empty anymore. Morgan stood there, soaked, pale, eyes unfocused. Her head tilted slightly as if listening to something far away. "Morgan," Tess whispered. "You're alive." "We finished our trip," Morgan said softly. "J2. We're waiting for you." "Waiting where?" "Downstairs." The elevator lurched violently. Tess slammed into the wall. Water began seeping through the seams in the floor. "Morgan, help me." But Morgan was smiling now, too wide, too calm. "It's okay. It's only water." She stepped backward, into the wall, and vanished. The intercom crackled again. Final floor. All passengers prepare to disembark. Tess screamed, hammering the door. "Stop. Let me out." But the door slid open on its own. Black water poured in, swallowing her up to the waist. She gasped at the shock, freezing heavy. Through the rushing sound, she heard another, the deep groan of a ship's horn. The ferry. Outside the elevator there was no hallway. Only a vast, endless sea. The elevator itself now stood like a cage suspended over dark water, cables rising into fog. Floating ahead was a ferry, enormous, skeletal, glowing blue from beneath. Its deck was crowded with shapes, passengers motionless, their eyes fixed on her. At the front of the deck stood Captain L. He raised his hand, pointing toward her. The route must complete. Tess backed against the wall. No, I'm not part of this." "You accepted the descent," the captain's voice echoed, not through air but through the water itself. "You pressed the button." The ferry drifted closer. Its deck scraped against the elevator frame. Metal shrieked. Cold spray hit her face. A gangway extended between them, a bridge of rust and rope. "Step forward," the captain said. "There's always one more ride." Tess shook her head violently. "I'm not going with you." The water inside the elevator rose to her chest. Voices began whispering all around her. Jay Morgan, the girl from the station, countless others. "It's the same ride. Every year. Every time." The switch beside her flickered. Open water. She slammed her hand down on it. For a moment everything stopped. Then the world split. The ferry lights shattered into blinding white. The cables snapped. The elevator plunged, spinning through blackness and water. Tess screamed as the sound warped around her. The horn, the cables, the voices, twisting into one endless tone. And then silence. When she opened her eyes, she was sitting upright. Dry. The elevator door was open. Beyond it, a bright, sterile lobby. People moved normally, office workers, tourists laughing, oblivious. The Buckner building had been restored. A receptionist smiled at her. "You're early for the tour, Miss Varela?" Tess stared, shaking. What year is it?" The woman blinked. 2025, of course." Tess stepped out, heart hammering. Everything looked normal. Until she saw the floor plaque beside the elevator, "In memory of Capt. L. and the 22 lost at Ship Creek, 1964. Her camera buzzed in her hand. On the screen, a notification appeared, from the same rideshare app as before. "New request, Ship Creek Access Road. Driver, T. Varela." The elevator behind her dinged. She turned slowly. The doors had reopened. Inside, the cabin was empty, except for a single wet dollar bill lying on the floor. Tess stepped closer, trembling. The bill's ink bled across the paper, forming a message in smeared black letters. "Trip completed, passenger transferred." The elevator doors slid shut. "They say the Buckner building sleeps again. The lights are out. The cameras are gone. The halls are quiet. But the static never really stopped. If you tune a radio near Whittier, between 1:40 and 1:50 a.m., you can still catch it." A woman's voice whispering between the static. "Trip completed. Awaiting next route." No one knows where she's broadcasting from. Some say she's trapped between the floors, still calling the next passengers. Others think she finally made it out, and found a new signal. Because lately, pilots flying over the Alaska Triangle, the silent void between Anchorage, Juneau, and Barrow, have reported strange transmissions. Voices that echo through empty channels. Coordinates that lead nowhere. And a new code phrase repeating again and again, "Quiet hours have begun." Locals say if you hear that phrase after midnight, don't answer. Because once you do, the signal doesn't stop calling. And neither will they. Next time on Voices from the Other Side, Triangle Quiet Hours. Anchorage Control, 1:42 a.m. Northwest Air Traffic, this is Tower 9 confirming last contact with Flight 162 from Juneau to Anchorage, respond. Static. No reply. The controller, Mara Chin, leaned closer to the microphone, her eyes flicking across the radar display. A faint blip hovered where no aircraft should be, circling a blank spot inside the Alaska Triangle, a region pilots joked about, but no one truly understood. Mara exhaled, steady but uneasy. 162, you're off course by 40 miles north-northeast. Confirm position. Static. Then a voice. Anchorage, this is Delta 162, we're on approach. The voice was male. Calm. Too calm. And old. Mara frowned. The number didn't match. Negative, Delta 162, there's no Delta service on frequency. Identify yourself. We copy, this is Captain Reese Warner, Flight 162. Request vector to Ship Creek Terminal. The headset went cold against her skin. Captain Warner. The same name from a file she'd seen earlier, an unsolved disappearance from 1975. Flight 162 vanished en route to Anchorage. 32 passengers. Never found. Mara swallowed hard. Captain Warner, repeat your call sign. What aircraft are you flying? Dulat DC Sao? Juneau origin, full manifest. We're late. Her pulse quickened. The DC-6 had been retired decades ago. Captain, you've been off radar a long time. Can you confirm your flight time? Time? The voice crackled, confused. March 23, 1975. Whittier. The transmission broke into screeching static. Her console lights flickered. The clock on the wall froze, 1:44 a.m. No, she whispered. Behind her, the night operator Theo stirred his coffee and frowned. Everything good? Maybe a prank, she said, though her voice betrayed her. But when she turned back, the radar blip had multiplied. 1 became 2, then 4, then 32, all circling the same invisible center. Each pulsed in perfect rhythm. Like a heartbeat. Theo leaned over. Could be a reflection, weather anomaly. The radio exploded with overlapping voices. Dozens, layered, whispering through static. quiet hours have begun. Mara ripped off the headset, heart pounding. The sound didn't stop. It now came from every radio in the tower, even the ones turned off. Quiet hours, quiet hours. Theo grabbed the switchboard, pulling power. He flipped the breakers, and the lights died. The entire tower went black. Outside the glass, the aurora danced low on the horizon, green, red, purple, moving like slow-burning fire. For a long moment, silence. Then, a single radio, battery-powered, flickered on by itself. Anchorage Control, do you copy? We're descending now. Visibility's clear. Mara's throat tightened. This is Tower 9. Who is this? This is Flight 162. We've been waiting for clearance. We can see your lights. There are no landing lights, she said softly. We shut down power. Negative. The field's lit. Looks beautiful. Theo whispered, Mara, look. She turned toward the window. The runway, dark seconds ago, was glowing. Not with bulbs, but with a phosphorescent shimmer spreading across the asphalt like veins of ice. And above it, shapes, faint outlines of an old aircraft, propellers spinning soundlessly, its silver hull reflecting the northern lights. Mara froze. That's impossible. The radio crackled again, voices overlapping. Tower, we're on final approach. Anchorage, we're home. We never landed. The signals looped over each other, 32 voices in perfect harmony. Theo whispered, we need to record this. He hit record on the analog tape deck. The reels turned, catching every word. Then, as suddenly as it started, silence. The runway went dark. The aurora dimmed. Mara clicked the desk light on, hands trembling. Did you get it? Theo checked the recorder. The tape had stopped. The reel was full, but blank. He frowned. It's like it never recorded. A faint smell filled the air, sea salt. And from the open radio channel, a final whisper slipped through. Trip completed. Awaiting next route. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Frost crawled across the inside of the tower glass. Mara stared at the frozen radar, at the blank spot pulsing faintly in the center of the triangle. Captain Warner, she whispered, where are you now? No answer. Only the faint, rhythmic ding, 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 of an elevator somewhere, echoing through the static. Log entry, 3:11 a.m. Location: Mount Iliamna Air Relay, 48 miles west of Anchorage. Person: Mazachen, Teulaua. Objective: investigate signal source from Flight 162 transmission. The road up to the relay had been closed since 1982. Snow covered everything, except the tire tracks that weren't theirs. Theo kept glancing at the rearview mirror. You sure the coordinates are right? This place is dead. Mara adjusted the handheld receiver, its green light blinking erratically. The ping's here. Is strong. Something still broadcasting from altitude 8,200 feet. The wind howled around them. Trees bent like bowed heads. As they climbed, static filled the radio. Hissing, whispering fragments of old radio chatter. Anchorage Tower, this is Flight 162, descending. Copy that. Maintain altitude. Altimeter reading, unknown. Theo lowered the volume. We shouldn't be getting this. These tapes were wiped decades ago. Mara didn't answer. She could feel it, the same pressure she'd felt at the control tower, that sensation of being listened to from somewhere above. When they reached the top, the relay building loomed out of the snow, a squat concrete bunker with rusted antennae jutting like frozen ribs. No footprints. But a faint orange glow flickered from inside. Theo killed the engine. Who the hell left lights on in there? Mara checked her watch. The hands were frozen. 1:44 a.m. It's not possible, she muttered. They approached the door. A metal sign hung crookedly. U.S. Air Communication Relay, decommissioned 1976. Do not enter. The door was slightly open. Warm air drifted out, smelling faintly of salt and ozone. Inside, a single radio terminal still hummed, powered by a generator that shouldn't be running. A reel-to-reel recorder spun slowly, its tape feeding in an endless loop. Anchorage Control, do you copy? Theo's voice trembled. It's the same transmission. The same words. Mara leaned closer. Listen. The static shifted, resolving into her own voice. This is Tower 9. Flight 162, you're clear to descend. Her blood ran cold. That's me. Tao Sualao. Mara, that's your voice, but you never said that. The radio hissed again. Tower 9, we see your lights. Mara froze. No. That was last night. That's what he said to me. Theo checked the recorder. The reels weren't turning anymore, but the voices kept playing. The signal was coming from nowhere. They're replaying us, he said quietly. Like echoes. Mara stared at the dials. One gauge read altitude, 8,200 feet, another read status, active. Someone's relaying our transmission, she whispered. Or something. The power flickered. The lights dimmed to a reddish hue. Then, a voice not from the speaker but from behind them. You're late. They turned. A man stood in the doorway, tall in an old pilot's jacket, ice hanging from his hair. His badge read capped, R. Warner. Teos Tumbelbak? This can't. Captain Warner smiled faintly. His skin was pale, his eyes glassy and gray. You shouldn't have answered the call, he said. You're part of the route now. You're dead, Mara whispered. Dead? His grin widened. Maybe. Or maybe we just never landed. He stepped closer. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of seawater. Water pooled under his boots, spreading across the floor. Theo pulled a flashlight, hands shaking. Stay back. Warner's voice dropped to a whisper that echoed from every wall. The triangle doesn't take lives. It holds them. Between air and water. Between ascent and descent. That's where we wait. The lights flickered out. Only the beacon outside pulsed red against the windows, bathing the room in bloodlight. Then the radio crackled again. Tower 9. This is Flight 162, requesting clearance to land. Warner turned toward the sound. They're calling again, he said softly. They always call again. He stepped back into the shadows, and vanished. Mara's receiver beeped. The green light now flashed wildly, stronger than ever. The signal's repeating, she said. It's looping the same coordinates. Theo checked the monitor. That can't be, that's Ship Creek. The speaker cut in again, overlapping itself. Anchorage Tower, we see your lights, we're home. Anchorage Tower, we see your lights, we're home. The sound warped, deepened, until it was no longer human. Mara grabbed the recorder. We have to go. As they turned for the door, the radio dial snapped to life, glowing bright white. It displayed 3 words, quiet hours active. Then the signal bled into a new voice. A woman's. Come. Familiar. Trip completed. Awaiting next route. Mara froze. It was her voice again, only slower, colder, hollow. Theo whispered, it's recording us. In real time. The radio replied, perfectly in sync. In real time. Field log, 3:57 a.m. Recorded by Marachin subject. Mount Iliamna Relay Station, post-contact anomaly. The station's layout doesn't match any air-comm design I've ever seen. The corridors loop back on themselves. Every door leads to another version of the same room. Mara's voice shook on the tape. Behind her, Theo adjusted the light on his headlamp. The beam caught frost clinging to steel walls, and something else beneath it, faded paint lines like floor numbers. But they were wrong. Each door they passed was marked not with digits, but with years. Theo whispered, it's like Buckner's elevator. Mara didn't respond. The memory of that name made her stomach twist. The deeper they went, the warmer the air became. A low hum vibrated under their feet, like a buried generator. And somewhere deep inside the static hum, voices. Maintain altitude. Hold position. Quiet hours active. Taus of Lasai Flika. The walls are sweating, he muttered. This isn't frost, it's condensation. Mara wiped a gloved hand across the metal, and found salt residue. The air smelled faintly of the ocean. They were 8,000 feet above sea level. Theo, she said softly, we're not just in a relay. We're inside a transmission. A metallic groan echoed from the hallway behind them. Theo turned sharply, the corridor was gone. In its place stood another passage, longer, darker, bending down into the earth. "It's shifting again," he said. Mara lifted the handheld receiver. The green light pulsed faster, syncing with the hum of the floor. Every few seconds it emitted a beep, and each beep was followed by a whisper. "Trip completed. Awaiting next route." The sound didn't come from the radio anymore, it came from the walls. Mara turned on her recorder. "We're observing spatial instability, structure changing every 30 seconds. Temperature increasing. Audio feedback present, resembling breathing." Then the hallway lights flared white. They blinked, and suddenly they were standing in what looked like a control room. Dusty consoles, rows of analog meters, and in the center, a huge radar display, still active. On its glowing green screen, 32 blips, circling endlessly around a triangle-shaped region. Theo leaned close. "That's the flight path. Flight 162. Mara nodded. "But look, the coordinates aren't fixed. They're moving." He stared. "Moving where?" The center of the radar began to ripple, as though the display were water. Each blip stretched and smeared, forming lines converging toward a new point, not airspace, not ocean. "Coordinates, Buckner Building, Whittier." Theo whispered, "It's linked to Buckner. The elevator. The ferry." "It's the same network," Mara said. "The same route. Air, water, and between." A deep vibration shook the room. Dust fell from the ceiling. The radar image pulsed once, twice, then began to bleed through the glass, glowing onto their faces. "Teostumbelbak?" "Mara, it's projecting." The light thickened, forming shapes. The ghostly outline of a plane, then a ship, then a building, all merging, overlapping, pulsing like one heartbeat. From the static emerged a low, mechanical chant. "Passengers still on board. Passengers still on board." Mara clutched her head. The radio on her belt screamed feedback, looping her own voice again and again. "Tower 9, do you copy? Tower 9, do you copy?" Theo covered his ears. "It's not us calling, it's the station calling itself." The sound reached a pitch that rattled the glass. Then silence. The radar blinked off. The only light came from the beacon outside, now flashing blue, not red. "Teo esalet sakili." What does blue mean? Mara stared out through the fogged window. The beacon tower, far across the ridge, was moving, swaying gently as though it were alive. She whispered, "It's changing altitude." "What?" "The beacon. It's climbing the mountain." A low rumble rolled beneath their feet. The floor tilted slightly. Metal groaned. The walls expanded, like a lung taking in air. Theo stumbled toward the exit. "We need to leave now." But when he opened the door, the night outside was gone. No stars. No sky. Only clouds, thick and black, swirling below them. Mara realized, with a jolt, that the entire station was lifting off the mountain. The dials on the console confirmed it. Altitude, 8,200, 8,400, 8,600. Rising steadily. Theo's voice trembled. "It's an aircraft. The whole station is flying." The intercom crackled, a woman's voice, calm and cold. "All systems online. Next departure, 1:44 a.m. "That's impossible," Mara breathed. The voice continued, repeating the same line, but slightly distorted each time. Behind her, Theo looked at the recorder, its reels now turning backward. He whispered, "It's erasing us." The speaker repeated, "All passengers accounted for. Quiet hours remain active." The walls began to hum louder. The sound matched her heartbeat perfectly. Mara turned to Theo. "If it's moving, it needs a destination. Where does it go?" Theo pointed at the flickering radar. A single line now stretched away from Whittier into the middle of the triangle. At its end, a label appeared. "Echo altitude, station that never sleeps." A light above them blinked. The intercom whispered one last time, "Prepare for descent." Then, everything went dark. When Mara woke, the air was heavy, not cold but thick. Her lungs felt underwater. She turned her head slowly. Her flashlight was still on, rolling across the metal floor in slow circles. Theo lay a few feet away, half buried in frost. His eyes flickered open. We're still here? The walls creaked, low and wet like hull plates under pressure. Everything tilted slightly, a constant drift as if the room itself floated. Mara's voice rasped. We lost power. Then why do I hear engines? Tawitspa. And indeed, beneath the static there was a pulse, rhythmic, mechanical, impossibly deep. Like the heartbeat of something vast beneath them. She staggered to her feet. The air shimmered, thick with radio haze, static invisible form swirling like mist. Every few seconds the room flickered between metal and cloud. Theo blinked at the view beyond the window. We're not flying, he said. Then what are we doing? Below them wasn't sky, but a shifting ocean of signals. Vast waves of green static rolled beneath the floor, stretching forever. Inside those waves, Mara could almost make out shapes, faint silhouettes suspended in the static. People, seats, fuselages. Oh my God, Theo murmured. Those are planes. Hundreds of aircraft, gliding silently within the static sea. Their navigation lights blinked in ghostly rhythm, forming constellations of red and white. Mara felt the hairs rise on her arms. We're below the signal line. Taufzawin. The what? It's a boundary between transmission and silence. Below it, signals don't just echo. They live. The intercom sputtered to life. A woman's voice, calm and distant. Altitude stable. Echo chamber operational. Quiet hours remain active. Theo grabbed the microphone. Who's speaking? Identify. Static. Then her own voice replied. Mara Chin, Tower 9. Echo altitude confirmed. She froze. That's not me. The speaker buzzed. All passengers remain seated. The lights dimmed to an amber glow. The air seemed to hum with invisible tension. Then, a sound, the distant groan of metal doors opening. From the far side of the chamber, a corridor extended outward, lined with flickering red lights. On each wall, faded stenciling red. Passenger access, lower bay. Theo turned to Mara. Dove go? Mara's voice trembled. We have to. If this is transmitting, maybe there's a control core. They followed the corridor downward. With every step, the hum grew deeper, more like breathing. The walls began to sweat again, streaked with salt. When they reached the end, a wide hatch stood before them. Its window revealed a massive interior hangar, but instead of aircraft or equipment, it held people. Hundreds of them. Floating upright in clear, gel-like cocoons, their eyes open, mouths slack. Each wore clothing from different decades. Uniforms, flight jackets, dresses, suits. Their skin glowed faintly blue, pulsing in time with the low hum of the station. Theo backed away. They're alive. No, Mara said softly. They're broadcasting. The intercom clicked again. All passengers accounted for. Final boarding in progress. Her receiver beeped, light flashing violently. The signal meter maxed out. And from the center of the hangar, something began to rise. A shape of twisted metal and flesh, half machine, half human. Its head turned toward them. Where eyes should have been, twin radio dials spun slowly. A speaker was embedded in its chest. Welcome to Echo Altitude, it said, voice overlapping male and female tones. We are the signal now. Theo stepped forward, shaking. What are you? We are what remains when sound forgets its source. It took another step closer, dragging cables behind it that pulsed like veins. You answered the call, Mara Chin. You are now transmitting. Mara raised her camera, hands trembling. I never joined you. You replied. The static around her thickened, rising like smoke. Faces formed in it, Jay Morgan, the girl from Ship Creek, all whispering. Between air and water, between floors, between years. Taoskzim. Mara, it's merging. The cocoon figures began to vibrate, voices echoing from every direction. Passengers still on board. Passengers still on board. The sound hit like a pressure wave. The glass around them cracked. Mara fell to her knees, blood dripping from her nose. She looked up and saw herself inside one of the cocoons, eyes open, mouth whispering silently. Quiet hours have begun. Theo grabbed her arm. We have to shut it down. She looked at the console nearby, A single switch labeled, Signal Line Control. Without hesitation she slammed it down. A blinding flash. Then silence. When the light faded, the hangar was empty. No cocons. No voices. Just the slow drip of water and the hum of the beacon returning to red. Teo esalet, Temling. Did we stop it? Mara looked at her reflection in the control panel. For a moment it didn't move the same way she did. I don't know. The intercom crackled one last time. Trip completed. Awaiting next route. Audio log, 4:44 a.m. Location, unknown. Recording, partial recovered from Tower 9 archives. This is Mara Chen, Anchorage Control. I think this is my last broadcast. Her voice was calm, almost resigned. The tape hissed. Behind her words, faint echoes of other voices repeated them seconds later, slightly warped, like ghosts trying to keep up. If anyone hears this, we shut it down. The relay, the echo station. But it's still transmitting. Not from the mountain anymore. From the air itself. A breath. We're under the signal now. Or maybe the signal is under us. The scene shifted, boots on metal. Theo's breathing nearby. Theo? You awake? Barely, he whispered. Where are we? Mara shone her flashlight. They weren't in the hangar anymore. They stood in a vast chamber of glass and steel, suspended in darkness, like being inside the skeleton of a radio tower that stretched forever. Along the walls, hundreds of glowing radio dials turned slowly, all tuned to the same number, 1,440 kilohertz. The hum deepened, vibrating the air around them. For a moment it almost sounded like waves. Tao poiten up what? Mara looked. Above them, in the glass ceiling, faint silhouettes swam through static, ships, planes, the outline of a ferry's deck. The shapes drifted in and out of visibility, like clouds made of memory. It's all connected, she murmured. Ship Creek. Buckner. The flights. They're all on the same frequency. A voice came over the intercom, not mechanical, not human. Something between. The route continues. Quiet hours expanding. Signal range increasing. Theo gritted his teeth. I thought you cut power. I did, Mara said. But the relay wasn't just broadcasting. It was receiving. It's been collecting us, all of us, since 1964. The dials on the walls began to spin faster. Each one emitted a faint tone, forming a strange harmonic pattern, like a song built from Morse and whisper. Mara, Theo said, if this is a network, maybe there's a main node. She raised her light toward the center of the room. There, floating above a pedestal of black metal, was an old radio console, its faceplate cracked, knobs rusted, but still glowing. Every meter pinned at maximum. On its screen, letters scrolled endlessly, quiet hours, active. The console began to speak. Tower 9 confirmed. All passengers accounted for. Begin transmission. The floor beneath them rumbled. The chamber rotated slowly, the horizon tilting, the static sea above shifting into alignment. Theo clutched the railing. It's sinking to the triangle itself. It's turning Alaska into one big antenna. Mara's pulse thundered in her ears. Then maybe we can jam it. She stepped toward the console. Her reflection warped across the metal surface, dozens of her faces blinking out of sync. Each one mouthed a different line. Don't. We're already on air. You can't stop what's not alive. I have to try, she said. She reached for the master switch. The console spoke again, louder now, layered with 1,000 voices. Trip completed. Awaiting next route. Next route, Tower 9 Anchorage. Next route, Tower 9 Anchorage. Theo's eyes widened. It's routing to us. It's going back to the control tower. Mara slammed the switch. The world went silent. The static stopped. The hum died. For a moment, nothing existed. No sound, no light, no air. Then the whisper returned, small, quiet, intimate. Thank you, Mara. It was Captain Warner's voice. You closed the route. But you opened the channel. The console lights blinked one final time, each dial settling to 0. Teo esalet sakili. It's over. Mara stared into the console's dark screen. In its reflection she saw the control tower, Tower 9, bathed in daylight. Operators at their desks talking, laughing. And sitting in her old chair was her. Her reflection turned toward her and smiled. Mara? Tawitspa. She's already there, said the reflection. The hum started again, faint, rhythmic. The lights on the console flickered back to life. On the screen, a new message appeared. 1440 kilohertz, Anchorage broadcast active. From somewhere high above, through miles of frozen air, came the faint echo of a radio transmission. Anchorage Control, this is Flight 162, requesting clearance to land. Mara stepped closer to the console, tears freezing on her cheeks. You hear that? Theo asked. Yeah, she whispered. They're home. The hum rose, bright and terrible. Theo reached for her, but she was already fading, her body dissolving into shimmering static. Her final words came through the radio, steady, calm, and endless. This is Tower 9. Anchorage Control. Quiet hours have begun. They say when a transmission ends, the silence that follows isn't really silence. Just waiting. 4 weeks after the Anchorage broadcast, strange things began happening around town. Radios clicking on by themselves, cell phones vibrating at 1:44 a.m. Laundromat TVs flashing the words "Quiet hours active" before returning to static. No one could trace the signal. Every frequency led to white noise. Every speaker, however old or broken, carried the same whisper if you listened closely enough. Trip completed, awaiting next route. And then, it moved offline. The first reports came from a 24-hour laundromat on East 5th Avenue, where people said the washers started running even when unplugged, and that if you stayed past midnight, you could hear voices in the spin cycle, laughing, whispering, counting backwards. Security footage showed the clocks in the building freezing at 1:44, the same time the Tower 9 signal vanished. Local legend calls it the laundry game. No one knows who started it. You put in $1, close the lid and wait. If the machine stops before the timer runs out, you've been chosen. And if it keeps spinning long after the power cuts, someone else is waiting for you on the other side. Next time on Voices from the Other Side, the laundry game. The last person in Whisper Wash, Anchorage's 24-hour laundromat, was the night janitor, Eli Parsons, age 47, ex-Coast Guard, chain smoker, 2 divorces deep. He wasn't superstitious, but lately he'd started talking to the machines, because sometimes they answered. He pushed his mop across the tiled floor, humming to the sound of water sloshing inside the washers. One by one, the machines along the far wall spun silently. Except machine number 12, which was unplugged but still turning. Guess you didn't get the memo, Eli muttered. He walked over and opened the door. It stopped instantly. The barrel inside gleamed wet, cold, too cold. When he touched the rim, a pulse of static bit his fingers. Ow, damn thing's alive. He stared down at the coin slot. A single quarter sat inside, soaked like it had just been pulled from the ocean. That was when he noticed the clock above the folding table. 1:44 a.m. He frowned. He could have sworn it was just past midnight a few minutes ago. From somewhere deep inside the laundromat, a dryer door slammed shut. Then another. Then another. The row of machines vibrated in unison, humming a low, mechanical note, too rhythmic to be random. Eli backed away slowly. Okay, not funny. The fluorescent lights flickered once, twice. Then the sign above the counter, the one that said, "Thank you for keeping clean," sparked to life, letters rearranging in a shower of static. When it stopped, the new words read, "Quiet hours active." Eli's breath caught. He'd seen that phrase before, on the laundromat's old security monitor, replaying a grainy news broadcast about that plane signal over the triangle. He laughed nervously. Real cute prank, whoever's hacking the power. He reached for his phone, no service. Only a faint buzzing sound like a dial tone that didn't belong. Machine number 12 dinged. The cycle was done. He sighed and opened the door. Steam poured out, but it wasn't warm. It smelled like salt water and old metal. Inside was not laundry. It was a uniform, a dark, soaked flight jacket with a stitched name, Capt. R. Warner. Eli stumblet bokvad. No. The jacket dripped steadily, leaving a small puddle at his feet. Inside one pocket something jingled. He reached in, pulled out a wet dollar bill. On it the ink had bled into 3 words, trip completed. The lights dimmed. The washers stopped spinning one by one, until the only sound was the soft click of coins dropping into empty machines. He turned toward the counter. The vending machine's reflection in the glass showed movement, someone standing behind him. He spun around. No one. But every washing machine door was now open, wide, perfectly synchronized, like mouths waiting to speak. A low mechanical voice crackled through the intercom. Welcome, Eli Parsons. He froze. Who's there? You have entered the next route. Payment received. What the hell are you talking about? The nearest dryer began to spin, empty, glowing faintly from within. The drum's reflection warped, showing not the laundromat but something else. Waves, black sky, the faint outline of a ferry deck. Eli's voice cracked. No, I don't want. Player detected. The intercom interrupted. Insert coin to continue. His shaking hand lifted the quarter from machine number 12's slot. It was warm now, almost pulsing. He turned it over. The back had been scratched, faintly but clearly, into the shape of a triangle. The air pressure dropped. His ears popped. All the washers started spinning again, faster and faster, until the room roared with mechanical wind. The fluorescent lights flickered, revealing faces in the windows, not reflections but figures standing outside in the rain, motionless, watching. Each face was pale, blurred, water dripping from their hair. Quiet hours, never end, they whispered in unison. Eli covered his ears, but the sound was inside him now, vibrating through bone. The intercom spoke again. Do you wish to continue the cycle? He looked around desperately for the door. It was gone. Only the wall of machines remained, stretching endlessly in both directions. Please, he whispered. I didn't mean to start anything. Cycle continues regardless, the voice said. You cleaned your floor. Now we clean you. Machine number 12 opened again, steam billowing out. This time the inside wasn't metal. It was black water, swirling endlessly like a drain. Eli stumbled backward, but the floor beneath him tilted, slick with condensation. Coins spilled from his pocket, rolling toward the machine, each one stopping just at the edge, then dropping into the black water with a plink. He could hear whispers rising from the drain. Anchorage Control, Tower 9, trip completed. The sound grew louder, turning into a chorus, the same rhythmic hum he'd heard weeks ago on the radio when he couldn't sleep. Machine number 12 dinged one final time. Thank you for playing the laundry game, said the voice. Your route is confirmed. The lights went out. Only the faint glow from the washers remained, 32 of them, spinning silently in the dark. Each filled with salt water, faint faces visible within. The last sound on the security recording came from the coin slot of machine number 12, a single metallic clink. And then a whisper. Next player, awaiting. Anchorage, 11:58 p.m. The night smelled of detergent and rain when Jamie Archer unlocked the door to whisper Washington. She wasn't supposed to be here, not after what happened to Eli, but someone had to finish the shift. Rent didn't pay itself and she didn't believe in ghosts. She flipped the open sign and stepped inside. The air was damp and cold, like someone had just showered in salt water. A faint trail of footprints led across the tiles, barefoot prints, glistening like they'd been made minutes ago. Hello, she called. No answer. Jamie dropped her bag, put on her headphones, and started wiping down the folding tables. The hum of the washers was steady, comforting, until it wasn't. One by one they slowed. The sound of tumbling clothes faded into silence. Only machine number 12 kept spinning. She frowned. Figures. When she checked the plug, it wasn't connected. Same as before. She'd heard about that machine, the possessed one, as the regulars called it. Last week, a drunk had claimed it ate his jacket and returned it, smelling like the ocean. Jamie laughed at the memory. But the laugh died when the clock above the counter froze. 1:44 a.m. Her heart stuttered. She blinked at it. The second hand twitched once, then stopped again. From somewhere behind the dryers came a click, 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 like coins dropping one after another. "Okay, Eli, if this is you trying to mess with me." She trailed off. The sound grew louder. Every coin slot on every machine was filling itself, quarters sliding in from nowhere, clinking like a rhythm. The lights dimmed. The sign above the counter flickered alive again, same as before, "Quiet hours active." Jamie froze. "No, that's not funny. That's the same phrase from the news report." A low mechanical hum filled the room. The washers began to spin again, all at once, but this time backward. The floor vibrated. The air thickened, heavy with humidity and something else, something alive. Jamie ripped off her headphones. The sound didn't change. It was in the air now, a deep rhythm like breathing through metal. "Hello," she shouted. "Anyone in here?" A voice answered. Soft, calm, female, through the intercom. "Welcome, player 2. Excuse me? Cycle time begins now." The washers all clicked at once. Every screen lit up with a timer. 32:00. 32 minutes. Jamie backed toward the door. It was locked. The handle wouldn't turn. "Let me out." "The door remains closed until the cycle completes," the voice said. The first washer stopped mid-spin. Its door opened. Inside, not clothes. A photograph. Jamie stepped closer, trembling. It was a black and white picture of Eli Parsons. He was standing right here, mop in hand, only the background wasn't the laundromat. It was the deck of a ship. She dropped it, heart pounding. "Who's doing this?" The intercom buzzed. "You accepted the shift. Payment received." The floor beneath her feet rippled, water seeping up through the tiles. It smelled of salt and oil. The second washer stopped. Its door swung open, steam rising out, cold, not warm. Inside was Eli's mop handle, broken clean in half. Jamie stumbled backward, slipping in the thin layer of water spreading across the floor. Her reflection in it shimmered, distorted, delayed, like it wasn't quite matching her movements. The voice came again, quieter now, almost soothing. 32 machines. 32 passengers. One route. What do you want from me?" Jamie whispered. "Completion." Machine number 12 dinged. The door opened. Inside, something small glinted, a silver coin unlike any she'd seen. She picked it up. It was warm, etched with a tiny triangle. On the rim were faint letters, Tower 9 clearance granted. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen lit with a single message from an unknown number. "Flight 162 landing soon. Keep the cycle running." Her pulse quickened. "This is a joke." "Has to be." She turned and froze. Every dryer door was now open. From each one, water dripped steadily, forming a perfect circle around her. The intercom spoke again. "Do you wish to continue the cycle?" "No, cycle continues regardless." The lights flickered. Through the glass of the washers she saw faces, not reflections but people, pressed against the inside like divers trapped under ice. Their mouths moved in unison. Trip completed. Awaiting next route. Jamie screamed, grabbing for the breaker box. She yanked it open, every switch already off. Still, the machines turned. The timers above them began to count down. The air pressure dropped. The hum grew louder. Jamie looked toward the door and gasped. Someone was standing on the other side of the glass. It was Eli. Soaked, eyes pale, face slack. He raised his hand slowly, palm against the glass, and mouthed a single word. "Run." The timers hit 144. The washers stopped. The room went still. For a long, empty moment there was no sound, then a single ding. The intercom spoke its final line. "Cycle time completed. Next player, loading." Anchorage, 2:03 a.m. Jamie didn't remember blacking out. When she opened her eyes, the machines were still spinning, only slower, like they were tired. The lights had dimmed to a dull blue, the kind of color you only see underwater. Her hands were damp. Her reflection in the floor rippled like a pond. She could still hear the faint echo of Eli's voice from before. "Run." But there was nowhere to run. The door was still locked. And now, Something new was dripping from the ceiling. It wasn't water. It was thick, almost oily, and smelled faintly like detergent mixed with seaweed. She wiped her hands on her jeans. What the hell? A faint clink came from behind the dryers. The sound of metal on tile. Jamie turned, clutching the flashlight from the supply cart. The beam cut through the damp air, catching rows of detergent bottles, rusted washers, and the dark backroom door marked employees only. She'd never been in there before. Eli always kept it locked. Now the door stood open just an inch, and a soft white glow spilled out from inside. "Nope," she whispered. "Nope, nope, nope." But then she heard it, a low voice, distorted, wet, whispering her name. "Jamie?" She froze. The voice came from the sink near the door, the one used to rinse mops. She approached slowly. The faucet was running by itself. The water that poured out wasn't clear. It shimmered silver like liquid radio static. And beneath the sound of running water, she heard breathing. "Who's there?" she asked. No answer. But the drain began to speak. "Fabric softener, aisle 3. The words bubbled through the pipe, mixed with gurgles. Her flashlight trembled in her hand. "What did you say?" The voice grew clearer, female now, calm like someone reading a script. "Add 1 capful for every cycle. Repeat until clean. Repeat until clean." Jamie stumbled back, knocking over a bottle of detergent. Blue liquid spilled across the tiles, mingling with the oily water dripping from above. Where they mixed, it began to move, swirling like a living thing. The intercom crackled. "Fabric softener, phase 2. Welcome to rinse cycle." The washers all stopped spinning. Doors opened one by one, slow, deliberate. Inside each, water churned thick and dark, and faint faces formed in the reflection, human but hollow-eyed, whispering the same word over and over. "Rinse, rinse, rinse." Jamie backed toward the storage room door. Inside, the glow pulsed brighter, the color of deep-sea light. She stepped inside. The air was warmer. The hum louder. It wasn't a storage room anymore. The space stretched downward into a metal tunnel, lined with dripping pipes that breathed in and out like lungs. The floor was slick. The walls trembled faintly as though something massive was turning far below. On the nearest wall, words had been scrawled in dripping black. Cycle time equals 32 minutes. Fabric softener equals submerge. She swallowed. Submerge what? The intercom clicked again, following her into the tunnel. "Player 2, ready for rinse. Please proceed to drain chamber." "I'm not playing your game." "Cycle continues regardless." Jamie pressed forward. The tunnel curved downward. The deeper she went, the wetter the air became, until her clothes clung to her skin. Her phone vibrated again, a new message from the same number. "Tower 9 confirms receipt. Continue transmission." The signal strength was 0. Still, the message had arrived. She looked up. A single fluorescent light hung from the ceiling ahead, swinging slowly. Beneath it stood a washing machine, half submerged in black water. Machine number 12. It shouldn't have been there. But there it was. Door open, light glowing faintly from within. Something floated inside. Jamie crouched down, flashlight shaking, and saw it. A bottle of fabric softener, label peeling off, filled not with liquid but with sand and seawater. The sand moved. She dropped the light. It hit the ground and rolled into the water. The surface rippled, and from inside the machine a hand reached out. Pale, waterlogged, with a quarter clenched between its fingers. Jamie screamed, stumbling back. The voice from the intercom returned, calm and cheerful. "Remember to treat your garments gently. Use cold water for lasting results." The hand dropped the quarter. It rolled across the metal floor, stopping at her feet. On its face, faint letters glowed in condensation. Echo altitude, 144. The hum deepened again, vibrating her bones. The tunnel walls seemed to breathe faster, contracting and expanding with the rhythm of the washers above. Water began rising from the floor, first her ankles, then her knees. She turned to run, but the tunnel behind her was gone, replaced by a solid wall of moving, translucent liquid, like a wave frozen mid-break. "Jamie Archer," the voice said softly. "Cycle rinse complete. Spin cycle pending. Her flashlight blinked back to life underwater. Through the glass door of machine number 12, she saw a reflection, not hers but Eli's. He mouthed something silently. "Don't let them dry you." The lights overhead flared white. Then everything stopped. No sound. No. Just the faint drip of water. Jamie looked down. The quarter was gone. In its place, a wet dollar bill floated to the surface, letters bleeding through the paper. Trip completed. Anchorage, 2:18 a.m. Jamie tried to stand, but the ground wasn't stable anymore. The tunnel was rotating, slowly at first, then faster, metal grinding against metal, water sloshing against the walls. The hum grew deeper, turning rhythmic, a mechanical heartbeat. Above it all, the intercom whispered, calm and steady. Spin cycle initiated. Please remain still. Stop it. Jamie shouted, gripping a pipe. I'm not part of your damn game. Player 2 confirmed. Frequency aligning. The tunnel's movement intensified, throwing her off balance. The flashlight spun away into the rising water, its beam flickering around the curved metal walls. Every few seconds, the reflection seemed to lag behind reality, showing her still standing where she had been seconds ago. The air filled with the scent of ozone and salt. She felt pressure building in her ears, a static buzz threading through her thoughts. Your signal is strong, said the intercom voice. You are almost clean. Clean? She gasped. What the hell does that mean? Clean frequencies transmit without resistance. A violent jolt shook the floor. Panels on the tunnel walls split open, releasing jets of steam that hissed like whispers. Behind them, faint silhouettes began to form, translucent figures, spinning in slow orbit around her, as if caught in invisible washing machines of their own. Their mouths moved in rhythm with the hum. Rinse, rinse, rinse. Then as one they changed. Transmit. Jamie screamed as the tunnel tilted violently, flinging her toward the wall. She caught a metal rail and held on, teeth gritted. The hum had changed pitch again, higher now, rising toward something unbearable. The lights flickered to red. Symbols began flashing along the tunnel walls, codes, coordinates, numbers that looked familiar. 1440 kilohertz. 1:44 a.m. Tower 9. Anchorage. No, she whispered. You're broadcasting me. Her reflection on the water-covered wall looked back, but it wasn't her anymore. Its eyes were empty, mouth moving in sync with the intercom voice. Spin cycle, 32 rotations remaining. She turned and saw something behind her, a dark figure standing knee-deep in the swirling water. Eli. His uniform was soaked, his skin pale as chalk. But his eyes were lucid now, desperate. Jamie, you have to stop it. How? It's not cleaning you, it's recording you. Every sound, every heartbeat. You're part of the broadcast now. I don't understand. Look at the machines. The tunnel walls shifted again, peeling away to reveal circular windows, the laundromats' washers spinning in unison. But instead of clothes, each one held a person. Faces pressed against glass, mouths open in silent screams. Their frequencies, Eli said. Trapped loops. Once your cycle finishes, I'll transmit too. He nodded. Then his image flickered, his face dissolving into static. They'll call it a signal anomaly. Don't let them tune you. Wait. Eli. His body melted into a stream of light, sucked into one of the spinning machines. The hum dropped to silence. For a moment everything stopped. Then the voice returned, louder than ever. Spin cycle complete. Preparing to dry. Jamie fell to her knees. Water dripped from the ceiling in steady rhythm. She could hear faint voices echoing through the metal, hundreds of them whispering in unison. Quiet hours have begun. She looked around wildly. The tunnel was shrinking, compressing like the inside of a drum. The walls pulsed inward with each beat of the hum. Her phone vibrated again, another message from that same number. Cycle ending soon. Final rinse optional. She threw the phone into the water, screaming. Leave me alone. The hum spiked to a deafening pitch, a perfect tone no longer human. Lights strobed violently, flooding the tunnel in alternating red and white. A new figure stepped from the spinning light, tall, thin, wearing a soaked flight jacket. Captain Ark Warner. He looked exactly like the man from Eli's story, from Ship Creek. His eyes glowed faint blue, pupils shaped like dials. "Transmission route confirmed," he said softly. "You are clear to ascend." "I'm not going anywhere." "You already are." The ground dropped beneath her feet, not falling, rising. The tunnel itself was lifting upward, spinning faster, faster, until the walls blurred into liquid light. She saw flashes, a ferry deck, a radar screen, a control tower in the snow. All connected. All the same route. "Tower 9 to Player 2, said the intercom. "Your frequency is stable." Jamie screamed into the static. "Stop it." The voice that came back wasn't hers, it was her own echo repeating from somewhere far away. "Stop it, stop it." Then quieter, slower. Spin cycle complete. The tunnel stopped. Jamie was alone in silence. She turned, the exit door stood open behind her, dripping water. Beyond it lay the laundromat again, quiet, fluorescent lights humming softly. Everything looked normal. She staggered out. The machines were still. The clock above the counter blinked 2:32 a.m. Her reflection in the glass door stared back, pale, soaked, eyes hollow. Then it smiled. "Cycle complete," it whispered. "Drying in progress. Anchorage, 2:44 a.m. The lights inside Whisper Wash flickered like they were breathing. Jamie stood in the center of the laundromat, soaked, trembling, watching the reflections of the machines spin without power. Each round window glowed faint blue, as if something behind the glass was giving off light, or watching her. The intercom clicked. "Cycle completed. Prepare for final rinse." "No more cycles," she said. "I'm done. Completion is mandatory." The floor vibrated. The machines began to fill, not with water but with air, spiraling inward like reverse whirlpools. Paper, lint, and loose coins lifted from the ground, circling her feet. She reached for the door, but it refused to open. Beyond the glass, the world outside shimmered like a mirage. A city underwater, Anchorage half submerged in static light. "Jamie Archer," the voice said softly, "your frequency is clear." "You don't own me," she hissed. "No. But you answered." The hum deepened. Machine number 12's door eased open with a hiss of cold mist. Inside lay a single coin, bright silver, engraved with a triangle and the words "Final Rinse, Tower 9. Jamie stepped closer. The temperature dropped. Her breath came out in fog. "Insert coin to transmit," the intercom said. "And if I don't?" "Then the cycle continues forever." The floor beneath her pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Outside, snow began to fall sideways, carried by a wind that didn't exist. Through the laundromat window she saw the reflections of other faces staring back. Eli, Captain Warner, and dozens of others she didn't recognize, all mouthing the same words. "One more rinse." Jamie clutched the coin so tightly it cut her palm. "What happens if I do it?" "You finish what they started." The coin grew warm, then hot, until it burned with white light. She dropped it. It landed perfectly in the open slot of machine number 12 with a sharp clink. Immediately, every washer roared to life. The building shook. Water burst from the machines, flooding across the floor in spiraling patterns that formed symbols. Triangles, circles, antenna lines. Above her, the fluorescent lights flashed in Morse code. Short pulses spelling one phrase again and again. "Tower 9 online." Jamie stumbled backward. The water was rising fast, ankle deep, then waist deep. The hum turned into a tone so low it vibrated her teeth. She grabbed the counter to stay upright as the room tilted around her. Through the windows, the sky glowed white. Not snow, but signal light, waves of radio energy rolling through the air like tides. Her phone, lying in a puddle, buzzed one last time. A notification flashed on the cracked screen. "Tower 9 to Player 2, broadcast live." "No!" Jamie screamed, grabbing the phone and hurling it into machine number 12. The moment it hit the water, the noise stopped. Everything went silent, dead silent. Then a new sound rose from beneath the floorboards, a distant chorus, hundreds of voices chanting in perfect unison. Quiet hours have begun. Quiet hours have begun. The water stilled. It was so clear now she could see the bottom, and beneath it reflections of cities, rivers, and faces looking up. Anchorage, Whittier, Ship Creek, all connected by the same shimmering signal. The intercom spoke one last time, soft, almost gentle. Thank you for completing the laundry game. Your frequency will remain active. Jamie trembled, her vision blurring. The water rose over her shoulders, then her chin. She gasped for air as the surface closed above her, her screams swallowed by the sound of spinning metal and rushing water. Her eyes opened under the surface. It was bright there, a vast blue void filled with machines, voices, and ghosts circling like satellites. Each one was whispering into a receiver, endlessly repeating the same lines. Tower 9. Flight 162, trip completed. Jamie reached out, but her hand was already translucent, turning to light and sound. Jamie Archer, Anchorage Control, her voice echoed from everywhere. Quiet hours are now permanent. They say every broadcast ends somewhere. But in Alaska the signals don't fade, they sink. When the laundromat on East 5th finally shut down, the city claimed it was a power surge. But for weeks after, people in Anchorage kept hearing it, a soft churning sound under their floors like something still spinning, still washing beneath the streets. Plumbers reported pressure spikes in the main water lines. Sinks began to run blue for a few seconds before turning clear. And if you held your ear to the drain, you could sometimes hear it, a woman's voice, calm and hollow. Cycle complete. Preparing next route. The water treatment plant traced the anomaly south. It wasn't electrical. It wasn't even chemical. It was frequency. Something traveling down the old underground pipes, flowing beneath the permafrost, following the current all the way to the coast, then disappearing into the tunnels under Juneau. Locals there had stories of a forgotten network of submerged corridors built during World War II, sealed after a flood in 1951. They say if you go down there now, you can still hear the ocean breathing through the walls, and sometimes when the tide is high the lights flicker blue, like something alive moving inside the water. And lately the city has started reporting a new kind of noise, low-frequency pulses on the maintenance monitors, repeating one phrase over and over, quiet hours channel, active. Next time on Voices from the Other Side, Blue Tunnel under Juneau. Juneau, 1:37 a.m. The maintenance elevator creaked as it descended into the ground. Rick Mason, senior technician, checked his watch and sighed. The new guy beside him, Connor Hale, was pale, holding the railing too tightly. Relax, Rick said. We're just checking pressure valves. In and out. Yeah, Connor muttered, except the last team that came down here never signed back out. Rick smirked. That's city gossip. Those tunnels flooded years ago. Nobody works down there now. The elevator stopped with a jolt. The doors slid open to reveal a long concrete corridor, water-pooled ankle-deep. Blue emergency lights flickered along the ceiling, reflecting off the surface like veins of light. Connor stepped forward and froze. You hear that? At first it was faint, a slow rhythmic sound under the hum of the pipes. Like someone breathing. Just ventilation, Rick said, forcing a laugh. But the air wasn't moving. The walls themselves seemed to inhale. Moisture drew inward, then exhaled again, tiny ripples spreading across the water. Every few seconds the tunnel pulsed. Connor whispered, "It's alive." Rick turned on his body cam. "Let's record it. Engineering will want proof of this mess." They walked carefully, their boots splashing through icy water. The deeper they went, the thicker the air became, heavy with salt. The smell reminded Rick of old ships. Halfway down the corridor, they passed a rusted door marked Hydro Station 9. A faint glow leaked from the crack at the bottom. "Shouldn't be any power here," Rick said. He crouched, pried it open. The door groaned. Inside was a control room frozen in time. Panels covered in grime, gauges fogged with condensation. And in the center, a single monitor still flickering blue. Connor approached it slowly. The screen showed static, lines scrolling upward like waves. Then letters appeared, faint but unmistakable. Quiet hours channel, active. "No way," Connor whispered. That's the same phrase from the Anchorage reports. Rick frowned. What reports? The ones about that laundromat, Whisper Washington. They said it broadcast a radio signal through water pressure. Rick scoffed. Urban legends. The monitor hissed louder. From its speaker, a low tone pulsed 3 times, then a voice spoke. Soft, mechanical, female. Cycle complete. Awaiting next route. Connor's eyes widened. That's the voice. That's her. Rick stepped back. You're telling me a laundromat ghost is talking through the city pipes? Before Connor could answer, the lights flickered again. The walls groaned, this time deeper. Concrete dust rained from the ceiling. Pressure surge, Rick muttered. We gotta check the valves. They turned toward the next corridor, and stopped. The water was rising. Only a few inches at first, but climbing fast, and glowing faintly blue. It's not water, Connor said. It's light. The liquid shimmered like mercury, swirling with pale luminescence. Inside it, shapes moved, silhouettes drifting upward like fish. Rick grabbed his radio. Control, this is Section 4, we've got movement in the lower conduits. Request immediate. Static cut him off. From the far end of the tunnel came a hollow metallic echo, a drip that wasn't a drip. Each impact sounded deliberate, patterned. Morse code. Connor tilted his head. It's spelling something. Rick listened. Short, short, long short. He recognized the pattern. It was a time. 1:44 a.m. He looked at his watch. We're leaving, he said. But the blue light thickened, coating the walls, creeping upward like veins of bioluminescent algae. The tunnel pulsed again, a deep, slow inhale. Connor screamed as the wall near him expanded, then opened, revealing a membrane of liquid glass. Through it he saw, not concrete, but a corridor of ocean beyond, endless and dark, with shadows moving inside. Rick, he whispered, they're watching us. Rick pulled him back. Run. They splashed down the corridor, but the tunnel seemed longer now, stretching like elastic. Each step echoed seconds late, bouncing off unseen walls. The intercom above them crackled back to life. Station 9 online. Cycle time, 32 minutes. Rick stopped, panting. That's not a station code, that's a wash timer. Connor pointed ahead. At the tunnel's end stood an old steel door marked Drain Access, blue line. Light seeped through its edges, soft, aquatic. We go through or we drown here, Connor said. They pushed together. The door opened. Water poured in, not flooding but flowing upward against gravity, twisting into the air like a rising whirlpool. At its center hung a symbol etched in light, a triangle within a circle. Rick stared, frozen. That's the same mark they found on the Anchorage coin. The voice returned, calm, inevitable. Next route confirmed. Transmitting to blue line. The wind, or something like it, rushed past them, carrying the scent of salt and static. Then everything went dark. Juneau, unknown time. Rick woke first. His ears rang with a low pulse, like sonar pinging through his skull. He blinked, but the darkness stayed. Then, slowly, the walls around him came into focus. Not concrete, but metal, slick with condensation and glowing faintly blue. He was lying on a grated floor, water dripping steadily through it. The air smelled of brine and rust. Connor? He whispered. No answer. He stood, unsteady, and checked his surroundings. He was inside a vast circular chamber, cables dangling like vines from above. A sign, half submerged against the wall, read, Hydro Station 9, Restricted Access. The name twisted his stomach. We were just outside this door, he murmured. How the hell? A soft splash cut him off. Connor was kneeling near the far wall, staring into the water pooling at his feet. It's warm, Connor said quietly. The water's warm. Rick joined him. The puddle rippled with each breath. It wasn't just reflecting light, it was moving with rhythm. Feels like breathing, Rick said. He looked down and realized the ripples weren't random. They formed patterns, concentric circles pulsing outward from invisible centers, like the surface of the water was listening to something. From the ceiling above, a pipe hissed and released a steady stream. The droplets didn't fall straight, They spiraled, perfectly synchronized with the ripples below. Connor whispered, "This isn't fluid dynamics. It's frequency," Rick said. "It's a broadcast medium." He looked toward the control consoles lining the walls. Most were dead, corroded relics of some long-forgotten hydroelectric station. But just one still glowed. The screen displayed waveforms moving in slow, deliberate rhythm. Each crest carried a number beneath it. 1440 kilohertz. Tower 9 SWNC. Rick frowned. Tower 9 again. Anchorage Control. Connor stared at the wave. If the Anchorage signal went through the water lines, it could have reached here through the old hydro system. The intercom above them crackled to life. Hydro Station 9, online. Cycle pressure nominal. Awaiting rinse confirmation. Connor stumbled backward. That voice. "Yeah," Rick said. "Same one from the tunnel." The floor trembled slightly. From beneath the grating came a deep thump. 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 Slow and regular, like the heartbeat of a massive machine buried below. Rick leaned over the railing and aimed his flashlight down. Beneath the metal floor was a reservoir, black water stretching beyond the light beam. Every few seconds, something under the surface glowed faintly blue, as though a pulse of electricity were traveling through liquid veins. "Christ," he whispered. "It's alive down there." "Or awake," Connor said. The monitor began to flash. Rinse sequence initialized. A warning siren sounded, faint but growing louder. "Rick," Connor said, "we need to shut this down." "I'm trying." He rushed to the console. Most of the switches were fused, their labels worn away. He found one lever still loose enough to move, marked cycle override. "Hold on," he muttered and pulled it. The siren stopped. Silence. Then a whisper. "Override accepted. Transmission continuing." Rick froze. "It's rerouting." The monitor flickered, showing a map, not of the tunnels but of Juneau itself. Blue lines spread beneath the streets, tracing the old water grid. Then the city outline began to duplicate, forming a second, ghostly version of Juneau beneath the real one, a mirror city made entirely of blue light and motion. Connor's voice trembled. "That's the tunnels. They're building a signal map." "A hydrophone array," Rick said. "It's using the whole city as an antenna." "To send what?" The intercom responded, almost immediately. "Quiet hours expanding. New channel, blue line confirmed." The water beneath them began to rise. Slowly, quietly, until it reached the grating. Connor backed away. "We have to get out of here." Rick looked for the exit, but the door they came through was gone, replaced by smooth, seamless metal. The water glowed brighter. Faces began to appear on its surface, blurred, distorted, like reflections that didn't match their owners. One of them looked like Eli Parsons. Another, like Jamie Archer. Rick's breath caught. No way. Those are people from the Anchorage signal," Connor said. "The ones who vanished." The intercom clicked again, voice serene. "Cycle complete. Blue line ready for next transmission." The reservoir below pulsed once, and the entire chamber inhaled. The water level dropped sharply, sucked downward like a drain. Wind whipped through the room as the pressure reversed. Connor shouted, "It's pulling everything." Rick grabbed a pipe, bracing himself. The monitor shattered, glass flying outward. Through the broken screen, faint light flickered, not from electronics but from the other side of the metal wall. Behind it, he saw another world of blue corridors, a reflection of this very chamber, and in it, two figures standing where they were, watching them in reverse. Connor whispered, "Rick, they're us." The intercom's final message came through, a soft voice, calm and inevitable. "Hydro Station 9, rinse complete. Prepare to spin." Juneau, Hydro Station 9. Rick was still gripping the pipe when the floor finally stopped vibrating. The water below had gone perfectly still, a black mirror stretching into infinity. Their reflections shimmered on it, but something was wrong. They weren't moving with them. Connor turned his head. His reflection didn't. It stayed perfectly still, staring upward with pale eyes that didn't blink. "Rick?" "Don't move," Rick said. "Something's watching through the surface." The intercom clicked, crackling with static. A woman's voice came through, calm, faintly mechanical. Cycle overlap detected. Synchronization required. Then the light changed. The blue hue deepened, thickening into a liquid glow that pulsed like veins under skin. And in that glow, the reflections began to move, not copying but anticipating, their gestures half a second ahead of the real men. Connor's breath hitched. They're predicting us. Rick stepped back. The reflection stepped forward. The air temperature dropped. Condensation beaded across the metal, dripping like sweat. The voice returned. Hydro Station 9, establishing mirror current. Maintain alignment for data stability. What does that even mean? Connor asked. It means we're the signal now, Rick muttered. He pointed to the water. The reflections' mouths were moving, whispering something he couldn't hear. Then, faintly, the sound bled through the chamber, a chorus of overlapping voices, all their own, speaking in distorted delay. Rick Mason. Connor Hale, pressure equalized, transmitting identity packets. Connor shook his head violently. No, that's impossible. It's copying us. No, Rick said. It's replacing us. As if to answer him, the lights flickered red. The water bulged upward, forming a perfect dome. Inside it, their reflections became solid, two figures made entirely of liquid light, standing in the center of the reservoir. Their faces were identical, but their eyes glowed like static. Hydro mirror current stable, the intercom said. Real-time synchronization achieved. Begin transmission. The clones raised their hands. Instantly, the pipes along the walls rattled to life, spewing thin streams of glowing water that slithered upward like snakes, forming tendrils connecting the clones to the machinery. Rick grabbed Connor and pulled him behind a console. If they finish syncing, the system goes live. The signal spreads across the whole grid. Connor's eyes darted to the main control board. There's a pressure release valve on the lower line. If we open it, we can flood both sides, cut power and mirror together. That'll kill us. It'll kill them too. The intercom voice softened as if hearing them. Warning, interference detected. Manual override prohibited. Screw your warning, Rick said. He crawled toward the valve, water up to his knees now. Each step made the reflections ripple, their movements more frantic as though trying to stop him. Hydro sync unstable. Recommend reset. The clones spoke in unison. You don't belong here. Rick twisted the valve. It wouldn't budge. Connor joined him, straining against it. The metal groaned, the floor shuddered. Then click. The sound was deafening. Every machine in the chamber howled at once, releasing jets of air and light. The reflections screamed, a high-pitched digital distortion echoing through the water. The mirror cracked. Lines of blinding light split across the surface, fracturing the perfect reflection into 1,000 shards. Each shard showed something different. Juneau streets glowing blue beneath the snow, Anchorage's coastline submerged in signal light, and faces, hundreds of them, all whispering the same phrase. Quiet hours never end. Connor fell backward, clutching his head. It's in my ears. I can hear them. Rick dragged him toward the far end of the chamber. The intercom's tone warped, voices overlapping in static. Pressure breach imminent. Mirror collapse in 60 seconds. The clones were disintegrating, breaking apart into streams of light that flowed upward through the ceiling pipes, disappearing into the system. Rick turned to Connor. We have to release the main lock. Finish the collapse before it stabilizes. Where's the lock? Rick pointed. A metal wheel halfway submerged in the water. They waded toward it, every breath echoing with static. The voice came again, quieter now, pleading almost. Stop the rinse. You will dissolve. Then maybe we end the signal, Rick said. Together they gripped the wheel and turned. The resistance was immense. The water began to churn violently, swirling around them, dragging at their legs. The clones' voices echoed faintly one last time, whispering from beneath the surface. We only wanted to be clean. The valve snapped open. Everything went white. The chamber imploded with a thunderous rush, a tidal surge of sound and water. Rick and Connor were thrown backward, engulfed by the collapsing mirror. For a heartbeat, the world became a single tone, a pure, deafening note at 1440 kilohertz. Then silence. Only one thing remained, the faint echo of a woman's voice through the broken intercom. Mirror current collapsed. Preparing next cycle, the blue gate. Juno, the reflection sighed. At first there was nothing. No sound, no light, only the soft thrum of pressure behind Rick's eyes, like his head was submerged miles below the ocean. Then came the color. Blue, endless, pulsing blue. He gasped and water spilled from his mouth, but he didn't drown. He was breathing through it. He blinked. He was standing somehow on solid ground, though it rippled beneath him like liquid glass. Above, massive columns of light rose into darkness, bending and swaying as if the sky itself were alive. Connor? His voice came back distorted, split into echoes that spoke milliseconds apart. Connor. 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 A figure moved through the haze ahead, slow, wavering as if refracted through water. Connor stumbled toward him, dripping with light. Rick, where are we? Rick turned slowly. Everything around them was Juno, but reversed, the streets curving downward into an abyss, buildings floating upside down in the distance like drowned reflections. And through the air, or whatever this was, flowed currents of sound visible as ripples of vibration, crossing the city like invisible rivers. We're in the reflection, Rick whispered. The mirror sighed. You mean the broadcast? Yeah. Whatever the station sent out, we're inside it now. The water, if it could be called that, vibrated with faint whispers. Words came and went like bubbles rising through pressure. Cycle complete, Tower 9 receiving, blue line stable. Connor shivered. They're still transmitting. A low hum rose beneath their feet. Far below, the ground, or the layer they stood on, began to move, rotating slowly. A symbol came into view, a triangle enclosed in a circle, etched into the surface beneath them, glowing like a deep scar. At its center, a door was forming, not made of material but of pure light, its edges warping the space around it. The blue gate, Rick said. Connor took a step closer. The surface rippled outward, responding to his movement like sonar waves. It's reacting to sound, he whispered. We're standing in an acoustic field. Rick frowned. Then it opens with a frequency. As if hearing him, the gate pulsed once, releasing a low note, a perfect tone that vibrated their bones. Then, from somewhere in the distance, another tone responded, higher, distorted like feedback. The two notes began to merge, forming a beat. Connor winced. It's tuning to us. Rick gritted his teeth. Or it's testing if we belong here. The gate shimmered, revealing faint images through the light. A hallway, an old hydro room, the outline of Hydro Station 9, but inverted, like seeing a memory through rippling glass. Rick took another step. The air around him thickened, pressing in on his chest. The tone grew louder, shaking his ribs. Don't, Connor said. We don't know what's on the other side. We can't stay here either, Rick said. Look. Behind them, the blue city was dissolving. Buildings melted into streams of liquid light, their outlines breaking apart into drifting shapes. Silhouettes of people, hundreds of them, all whispering the same line. We only want it to be clean. The sound of it was unbearable. Thousands of voices overlapping, each speaking half a second out of sync, creating a constant trembling chord that vibrated the world. Rick, Connor's voice cracked. They're coming this way. Rick reached for the gate. Its surface felt like dense fog, solid yet soft, humming faintly with energy. The intercom voice returned, but now it was everywhere, inside their heads. Hydro Station 9 connection re-established. Preparing new transfer route. They're reopening the link, Rick said. We can use it to escape. Connor hesitated. Or it drags us deeper. Only one way to find out. He pressed his palm against the light. It pulsed once, then pulled him forward with sudden force. Connor shouted and grabbed his arm. Instantly both were sucked into the gate. The world turned inside out. For a moment, everything was sound, a hurricane of frequencies, whispers, water pressure, and static. The notes from the gate spiraled around them like a siren's song, merging into one impossible harmony. Then silence. They landed hard on metal. Cold, real solid. Rick groaned and opened his eyes. He was lying on a wet floor, concrete walls around him. Dim emergency lights flickered red. He turned his head and saw Connor beside him, breathing, coughing, alive. Above them, a sign hung crooked on the wall. Hydro Station 10, blue line. Connor's eyes widened. Rick, we made it through. Rick nodded weakly. Yeah. But look. Water dripped from the ceiling, glowing faintly blue. Each drop hit the floor with a perfect rhythm. One beat every one. 44 seconds. And from deep within the pipes below, a familiar voice whispered, calm and distant. Next cycle confirmed. Preparing Anchorage uplink. Hydro Station 10, blue line. The emergency lights flickered red, washing the concrete walls in blood-colored glow. Rick sat against the control panel, breathing hard, his clothes soaked through. Connor crouched beside him, hands trembling, eyes fixed on the pipes above. They were humming again. Not metal vibrations, voices. Cycle confirmed. Anchorage uplink initiating. The phrase repeated in a rhythm, perfectly timed, each pulse matching the drops falling from the ceiling. Rick pulled himself to his feet. It's starting again. No, Connor said, shaking his head. We shut it down. We collapsed the mirror. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't, Rick interrupted. But maybe it's not them anymore. Maybe it's us. A deep tone rolled through the chamber, so low it felt more than heard. The pipes vibrated like organ strings. From behind the walls came a flood of whispering voices. Hundreds, overlapping, mechanical. Blue line stable. Transmission clear. Quiet hours continuing. Connor covered his ears. Make it stop. Rick staggered toward the main console. The display, dark moments ago, flickered back to life. Blue waveform lines scrolling like ocean tides. Text appeared. Anchorage Control, signal handshake accepted source. Hydro 10 Juno frequency matched, 1440 kHz. Rick's eyes widened. They're connecting the two cities. Anchorage and Juno? It's one network now. The console began to print lines of data across the screen. Active channels, 32. Signal type, audio/water pressure. It's using the pipes, Rick said. The entire Alaskan water grid, it's all one transmitter. Connor stared at the walls. The concrete was darkening, veins of blue light spreading across it like frost. He pressed his hand to the surface. It was warm. It's alive, Rick. The hum intensified. All around them, gauges spun wildly, meters burst, spraying vapor. A pressure alarm began to wail. Pressure exceeding limit, a calm voice reported. Rinse protocol commencing. No. No more rinse. Rick shouted. But the command didn't come from the intercom. It came from the pipes themselves, the sound vibrating through the metal in perfect cadence. The air thickened with humidity and static. Drops on the floor gathered into thin streams, forming shapes, letters that spelled one phrase over and over again. Tower 9 awaits. Rick stepped back. That's Anchorage's control tower. From the quiet hours signal. Then Anchorage is receiving this, Connor whispered. They'll hear everything. The room shook violently. The water in the lower tanks began to rise, faster than before, swirling with a pale glow. Rick looked down at the control board, his reflection rippling across the screen. It wasn't his reflection anymore. It was Jamie Archer. She stared out from the surface of the monitor, face pale, eyes wide, mouth moving silently. Her voice came through the static. You finished what we couldn't. Don't let it stop. Rick froze. Jamie? The voice echoed, multiplied. Eli Parsons, Captain Warner, dozens of others now joining her. Cycle complete. Transmission open. Keep it clean. Connor stumbled backward. They're not ghosts. They're data. Encoded memories, Rick whispered. People trapped in the broadcast. The floor trembled. Blue light spilled upward from the cracks, filling the chamber with blinding brightness. Then, through the roar of sound, came the final command, not mechanical this time, but human, urgent. Anchorage Control to blue line. Uplink stable. Begin broadcast. The walls turned transparent. Outside, through what had been concrete, Rick could see the city, the real Juneau, sleeping under the fog. Every streetlight flickered blue. Every storm drain glowed. From every faucet, showerhead, and pipe, water shimmered faintly with light, vibrating to the rhythm of the same hum. "It's everywhere," Connor said. "No," Rick whispered. "It is everywhere." The intercom returned, soft and cold. "Quiet hours have begun." And across Alaska, radios clicked on by themselves. Old televisions flickered awake. Even the ocean waves outside the harbor beat in sync with the tone. 1,440 kilohertz. The frequency of the dead. And now, the living. Rick looked one last time at the screen. His reflection, or what used to be him, smiled faintly. "Thank you for keeping it clean," it whispered. The light surged. For a single instant, the entire network pulsed blue, then vanished, leaving only silence and the echo of dripping water.